Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me as always...
Officer Hawkins, tell me, what happened in here? What happened? Did Michael kill? Did Michael kill again? Eddie of Edward is Truth.
I was going to say they should have hired you as the voice actor.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But thank you.
You're welcome. And continuing our Halloween train, we are doing Halloween Kills today. Released October 15th, 2021.
Wow.
Just less than a year ago. And obviously we did Halloween 2018 last month. Next month we are going to do Halloween Kill Ends. Once that comes out. And before we get to the synopsis, because I know we've been forgetting those lately, just kind of like just
one time.
Halloween Kills, yay or nay?
I mean, that's a question. I'd say if we're going off of how I felt going in, because the pod will be about the experience, but how I felt going in, I was dragging my feet and I felt a big nay, a big oh, do I have to go through this again?
But even your first viewing.
My first viewing was probably the best.
Yeah, oh, that's never a good sign.
Well, I mean, there was the first time I sat down to watch it, I wasn't in the theater. I was streaming it off Peacock. I was in the comfort of my own home. There were no distractions from any kind of like horrible audience members. And I remember I had avoided all of the promos and trailers and everything. So I went in knowing virtually nothing compared to, people who were consuming all of that and reposting it and everything like that. So when the Universal logo came on screen and the low music started rumbling and everything, I actually got excited for a second. I was like, oh, I'm finally watching Halloween Kills. I feel like I've been waiting forever to see this. Okay, I'm looking forward to this. And I enjoyed the ride. And every time I've seen it subsequently, I think I'll go into it more, but I think I've liked it a little bit less, except for this most recent screening, which we'll go into. But how about you?
Well, that was a very descriptive nay, but nay. Yeah. It's a no from me. And since you mentioned your first experience, when I saw 2018, I went to see that 3 times in the theater, and increasingly I got more turned off by it as I went through. But this one, I had no desire to go back and see it a second time after the first viewing, and I've seen it subsequently many times since, just to give you an idea of like, because sometimes like I'll see a movie in the theater and I'm not too keen on it, but then I'll give it another shot, and especially if it's something big like a Halloween or a Scream, because I did see Scream five times. And, even though that one, like, kind of got, like, after a while, I'm like, okay, I'm good. I've seen it enough. I got everything I needed to know out of the first viewing of Halloween Kills to just know that this is not my Halloween movie, and this is not my trilogy, I guess we'll call it that, or quadrilogy, since, if you talk to Jamie Lee Curtis, she's really keeps grouping in the original with it. This is the true sequence of films to go by. And honestly, everyone has their favorites. These are that. We'll start off by saying that this might be a lot of fans' preferred timeline. But hasn't even finished yet because Ends isn't out. But that's fine. Yeah. It's the franchise is really a choose your own adventure at this point. So it's whatever works best for you. But I mean, I've said this before and I'll say it again. Like, there is no wrong opinion when it comes to this franchise. But it's funny because you'll see people like go online and just like if you had 5 or 6 or Resurrection anywhere other than the bottom, they'd be like, how could you do that? How could you put it there? But you know what? It might be fun. I would like go on I haven't done this, but I'm tempted to just like go on other people's rankings, and if they put like Resurrection in the last, I'd be like, Resurrection in last place? Are you joking? Your opinion doesn't matter, you know? Just to troll people, you know?
Oh boy, you got a lot.
Even
of
though I
time in your
agree,
hands.
even though I agree, but
but just to be a troll.
yeah, just to have fun, just to pal around with people, you know.
I mean, I own it. I have
Kills,
yeah,
or
I mean, I don't. No, I mean, yeah, I own Kills,
Yeah.
but I mean, Resurrection I own with in this Miramax triple feature that I'm showing. If you're watching us, it has H2O, Curse of Michael Myers, and Halloween Resurrection all together because I was never gonna buy every one of these movies individually.
Yeah.
So
I think
and I didn't
that's
want the
kind of
box
like
set.
because Scream Factory just well, it hasn't been released yet, but it was announced. I think it's coming out just next week, or you know, by the time this is released, the box set of 6 H2O and Resurrection on 4K, because they wouldn't release them individually because they know that like nobody would. I think the H2O might be the only one that people would want to buy out of that, maybe 6, but nobody would want to buy Resurrection on its own. So they're like, well, we're just gonna put them all together, and then they can spend like $150 and get the whole thing.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty smart.
it's
I mean, that's
it's
good
a strategy,
business.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
totally.
I bought it. I mean, I probably would have bought Resurrection on its own as a like 4K like individual set because I'm a completionist that way. But I do own Kills despite my nay. So we're going to.
We'll get into that.
Yeah. Well, you're okay. You're gonna go over the
Kills.
synopsis, and just before that, what we're gonna do, just because there are a lot of grievances, and I don't want this to be a completely negative, like let's bash Halloween and Blumhouse and David Gordon Green and all that. So we're actually gonna do like, and I don't know the ratios, but we're gonna start off and talk about the things that we like, and we will refrain from saying anything nasty. But then, you know, once we get to the negatives, then, you know, like all bets are off. Like we're gonna get as nitty gritty and downright nasty as we need to.
Zach Cherry versus David Gordon Green. Place your bets. But it's a little Freddy versus Jason deleted scene for you.
What's this movie
and
about?
I want to say synopsis is loose because I feel like everybody listening to this has seen this movie, so I didn't work hard at all on this. I'm just reading it off IMDb, the shortest one, which is a sentence. So here we go. Just because you know what it's about, but here we go. Surviving victims of Michael Myers form a vigilante mob and vow to end his reign of terror after they discover that he is still alive. Halloween Kills. I mean, I didn't even incorporate like a sentence with the...
there you have it, folks.
There you have it, folks. That's what that movie's about. Good night! But... I do want to say, as I don't know if it's an addendum or whatever, but, or a precursor more so to what we're going to dive into. Buying the Blu-ray, I waited a long time. I didn't buy it when it was released. I got it like a month ago, and because I finally was like, I'm ready to see that extended cut.
Yeah.
And I put it on and I watched it, and oh my god. And it was the worst experience I had watching the movie, was watching the extended cut for the first time. And I was like, well, at least I got the theatrical cut. But I streamed it last night off of Apple. On Apple, I have all of my downloads and stuff on Apple. So I opened up the app and I'm streaming it off my laptop so I could do laundry while I watched it and took notes and things because I knew I needed to do something else. Yeah. And I went in probably, the lowest I've ever felt like going into this movie. And because I went in that way, it was surprisingly more positive. The positives were so much more positive for me. I was just like, I mean, I do like that, and I do like that. So it was much more like a zigzag of an experience for me. Like,
Well,
here's something you like, here's something you don't.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you say that, because we were talking about your notes, because I actually took some notes too. Because I wanted to make sure. I never take notes. I keep everything mental. But I knew, like, for this, like, there were specific things that I wanted to point out. But you were telling me about your note taking process and how it was a zigzag, because on the left column you would write the positives, on the right you would write the negatives, and you just kept going back that way. So that's it's interesting that
it really did. It was a wiggly worm of note taking. Experience that I had. But I started out with quite a few positives. The first one I have is just I just like how we open with Cameron and Frank, because at that particular moment I know exactly where we are as far as placement in the last movie, because I know who that is, and I like that. I'm like, oh, okay, continuity right away. This is what I used to live for as a kid horror fan. Is yes, let them be connected. Let me know that it's the same. I loved things that took place on there. The first time I found out that Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2, took place the same night as Halloween 1, brain explosion in my teens. I was like, because I was like, how did this much time go by without me seeing? It's like one movie. It's like one great big movie. So I got a little of that this time. I was just kind of like, oh, it's the same night. I can feel the chill in the air, and I know who that is, and I know what just happened. So that made me happy. How about you? Something for you?
There's definitely a lot of parallels. Like, if we're looking at Halloween 1978 to Halloween 2, 1981, between 2018 and Kills. So I really do like it's just sort of like the cross continuity of having it take place on the same night, and a lot of the same characters. You actually mentioned in the 2018 how you didn't realize at first that a lot of the victims in Halloween Kills are actually introduced in 2018. Yes. So it's kind of there's this sort of world building among the David Gordon Green films that I actually really do appreciate, because it's like, not only does it feel connective just in terms of like these movies, but it also feels like the Haddonfield that we're seeing in these movies is probably the closest of what I could imagine would be Haddonfield from the first two movies. Because, once you get to 4, 5, and 6, I'm just like the Haddonfield that John Carpenter created, which is so, like, even then, and, I don't want to talk too much about the original, but like the way that Haddonfield is depicted in that movie in 1978, it just feels so surreal to me, because it's basically, we're in Pasadena, and it's made to look like it's the Midwest. There's this quality about it that just feels very unworldly, and it's hasn't been replicated other than like probably the 1 and 2 of like the original movies. Sure. But just in terms of what they've created with these movies, like, I feel like that looks the closest, like, of what I'd imagine Haddonfield, of that otherworldly Haddonfield from John Carpenter's original, would look like 40 years later. So I commend them for that. Haddonfield looks good.
I agree, and I'm actually really glad you brought it up, because my next positive is also the flashback. As far as production value, completely, absolutely on point in terms of even just seeing them kind of like gather together in the alley. Even though I'm getting maybe distinctly more Halloween 2 vibes from it, I think that in and of itself is an achievement, because Halloween 2 does feel like the same night. So seeing Halloween Kills go into the same night, the aftermath of the first movie, and succeed, make me feel that, again, like that chill in the air, and make me feel that, like, the fencing and even the green, the shrubberies, like all the foliage around them, and the color palette and the way it's shot, and right down to like the very end of it when we finally get Michael Myers' reveal in the Myers house. The Myers house itself, oh my god, with the paint like chipping off of everything. I mean,
The continuity as well,
enough.
like the crack in the window from where the pipe swung into it from earlier in the night with Dr. Loomis.
From the angry villagers, yeah.
No, because that was in the sequel.
Oh,
it's not
from
in
Lonnie.
Continuity. I mean, like when Loomis is up there with Brackett, and he's telling his story, and then it goes like, and he pulls out the gun.
That's right.
And he's like, you must think me a very tense doctor, or whatever he says. And,
yeah, right.
he's like, I just think you're plain scared. He's like,
yeah, right.
I do have a permit for that.
Yes, I do have a permit. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, and then, but again, like I can't help but kind of drool a little bit out the side of my mouth as a cinephile and a Halloween fan to see Michael Myers again look even more so than in 2018 because the mask is aged and everything like that, but they captured how it should look that many years later. But the fact that same night Michael Myers' shape, mask, and body language and everything like that, he feels like the Michael of Halloween 1978, and oh my god, my heart.
And I mean, I don't want to like jump into negative territory here, but it's almost like seeing that, because I think like that really is the best part of the movie, and it almost like makes me wish like what I would have wanted from this movie is to have more like the continuity actually follow that, you know, because that's the beauty of what they're doing, like just by making a new timeline, is that you can create whatever new continuity you want in that span in between. And if they're just like, no, his reign of terror didn't end there, you know, there was someone else died. It was just one person, but they could have gone on with that more. And you know, especially since like Jamie Lee Curtis obviously had her allotted screen time, they could have even done a thing where like we have present day stuff and we have flashback stuff, so then they can like kind of balance it 50-50, because that would have been interesting to like keep going into the past and seeing what had happened. You know, maybe they didn't catch Michael right away, and you know, we're watching certain things play out in 1978 as they're playing out in present day 2018, and sort of like these parallels until like the very end. You know, they could do the mob scene, but then like in 1978 we can see like a similar thing where like Michael is apprehended, just because it's almost like it was almost like, okay, we're gonna like get all the good stuff, but we're just gonna put it right here, and then like we'll figure out the rest. So it would have been nice to just like balance that and kind of like, you know, pace it out for the rest of the movie, because I think like I do think that well, no, I just want to say, like, I do think that the first 20 minutes of Halloween Kills are very strong, and they're like very well just in terms of like as good as direction as we could get from David Gordon Green. It's just like the best parts of the movie are in the first 20 minutes. And again, I feel like because a lot of it is evocative of John Carpenter, and that's why it is so much better, because like anytime you're doing John Carpenter, it's that, because John Carpenter is what Halloween is to me. So that's why I think it works so much better than what follows it.
Sure, and I definitely feel it kind of throughout, but the time I feel it the most, where again another like head explosion happens, and it happened this time too. I was just kind of like, oh yeah, I do really love this part. It's just the I don't know if it's on a dolly or if they're just zooming out, but they're I guess dollying away from Michael Myers standing in front of the Myers house with Loomis behind him, and all of the police force have their, you know, guns drawn on him, and they're just playing the original score, just peeling away from him, just like we did in the original opening, you know, with young clown mask wearing boy Michael Myers, at, you know, where it all began. And oh my God, I can't, there's no words. It's just amazing. It's cinema, chef's kiss, more of that. Because I don't mind like homage stuff like that. Like anytime they can make a parallel, like that's amazing. And like especially the score there, I think that, because I mean I feel like the score itself is like almost like carried over from the original. I don't know what
anything new that they really added to it. I'd have to listen to it again. I know you've talked to me about things in the score that aren't particularly great, so we'll save that for later.
We'll save that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just in terms of like does work well here. Like I like at least like the connective tissue of like the sound design of the movie and all that. Like that works really well. There is something I wanted to mention in the extended cut in the opening here, which similar to you, I watched I don't know when you watched the extended cut for the first time. I guess like when you had just seen it, but
like a month ago.
Okay, yeah, because I bought the 4K when it first released, so I've owned it in my possession. I have not watched it until last night, and I put it on for the first time and watched the extended cut that I had never seen before, and there were only really two instances of, like, there were a few things that I noticed. I'm like, okay, that's different, or that was taken out. But there were only two times where I felt like that should have been left in. And the one thing that should have been left in, absolutely, was the scene where Michael was behind the bush when Lonnie first sees him.
Oh,
because that built up the tension. It explained why he was running afterwards. He was like running away because he had already seen him. And it just like created this, it almost like this, again, like going back to like the mystique of Michael and kind of like this supernatural element of him, where it's just like we see him just disappear behind the bush and there's really nowhere he could go without being seen. But when Lonnie goes around and it's like, where did he go? Like that was
scary.
I mean,
scary.
What did that take up? Less than a minute of screen time, but it's just like every second of that was worth it and should have been left in there. Because it built up the tension. Because when we do first see Michael in the theatrical cut, I think that's when Lonnie trips over and then we just see him walking towards him. So already like it's just, we've kind of skipped over like the part where, you know, we're starting to build suspense and already he's just coming right for him. So it's
right.
I mean, I'm trying to like keep this as a positive. I think that was good. That should have been left in. So I don't know what people consider to be canon, whether, you know, we're going by the theatrical or the extended. Because, I mean, again, with this franchise, it's hard to kind of decipher what is actually even within like the individual timelines, what is canon, because you have two different versions of each Rob Zombie film. You have two cuts of Halloween 6. You have now an extended cut of Halloween Kills. I don't like, it doesn't alter the movie that much, but it's still, there's certain things in there. And that's similar to like, you know, if people you talked about and they're like, well, that never happened because it wasn't seen on screen. It's in the extended cut, you know? So I don't know what your opinion is on things like that, because
I think it depends on how much respect you have for the director and how much freedom, you know, in the discovery of like, you know, the filmmaking process, how much freedom did the filmmaker actually have, and how many things were they kind of forced to do? Because I mean, I think at the end of the day, like the audience, or each audience member I should say, will make up their own canon, you know, like for this one I think I'm safe with going with the theatrical cut for everything as canon, because I don't even want to finish that sentence because we're talking about good stuff. I'll say it later. But speaking of which, I didn't know if this is for better or worse, but if you have an answer, I'm curious. Do you have an opinion that you can share now about why the Shape lets Lonnie go in this flashback sequence when he's on the pavement?
I mean, maybe there's like two reasons, because Hawkins and the other guy were approaching him and he just saw them and then kind of like dipped out. Or it might just be that like he really was like laser focused on his house and didn't even notice Lonnie, where it's just kind of like, I'm just making a beeline for my home, because it was like right in front of, like on the other side of the street, right? So he might have just been like kind of, you know how Michael moves, kind of like he doesn't kind of like take little detours. He walks in like straight lines, turns, moves.
And then...
that's just like the sort of robotic nature of like the way he moves. So I think that it was just sort of a thing where maybe if Lonnie had tripped like a few feet before, he would have like looked down and been like, who's this kid that's blocking my way? Stab. Move on. You know?
No, I mean, it made me wonder because this is the second time this particular Michael Myers has let a living, like a life, you know, kind of survive chronologically as far as what we're seeing on screen. Because in 2018 it was the baby,
Yeah.
and now it's Lonnie in this flashback, and it made me wonder, like, okay, they're both. What they have in common is they're both minors, but really what they have in common is the fact that they're both in absolute positions of surrender and complete vulnerability. Like, they're not going to fight back.
Yeah.
If you stab the baby, it's not going to fight you. If you stab Lonnie, he's just laying there. He's not, you know, you're not going to be able to see the fear in his eyes. He might not struggle. Maybe maybe the fun of it is the struggle, is somebody who's going to actually, like, either be afraid of you or fight back, or some kind of, like, mixture of the
I mean,
two.
I understand what you're saying,
that.
but I disagree, because I think that, like, even though Lonnie might be, like, in a submissive position at that point, he still is aware of the damage that Michael can do, or just like, or like, you know, like what he's capable of, or just like, you know, that Michael obviously has that connection with his victims where it's just like, it's like he can taste the fear or smell it, you know, it's
Right.
it's part of his essence of, like, you know, it's almost like he can sniff it out and he sees it. With the baby, like, you know, we talked about before, the baby is not aware or, like, you know, even cognizant of who or what Michael is, or even like what Michael could be, because it's a baby. It doesn't understand these things in life yet. So for Michael to kill a baby, it's just, there's nothing to gain from it for him, because there's like the baby won't have any experience in getting murdered by like a masked maniac. Whereas like a kid in Lonnie's position, where he's already seen him and he's in a vulnerable spot where he's tripped over and he's, you know, he's like paralyzed by fear, that's prime for Michael to, you know, go in there and do his thing. Because we've seen many times in this franchise where people have been paralyzed by the fear of Michael, and they've just been like, please no, and he's just like, maybe he might like play a trick on them and like disappear, and they'll be like, and then he'll appear somewhere else and kill them at that point. But the thing is that, like, they could have killed Lonnie. I mean, after 2018 they couldn't, because they already established that Cameron was his son. But I mean, if they wanted to, it's just like Lonnie hasn't really, I mean, even though it's a new timeline, they could have just been like, oh yeah, remember that bully kid from the original? Well, Michael killed him too in 1978. So it's, you know, like, they could have. I just think it was more so, I think that the reason for even having any of that in there was because they had to have the scene at the bar where it's just like, here are the survivors, and then it's just like Lonnie Elam survived a face-to-face encounter with the Shape, and it's just like, whatever, man, that's new information. Like, you know.
Okay, sticking to the good stuff, but I will say I do have another theory also now.
Yeah.
Maybe Michael Myers' vision is based on movement. And if you just drop to the ground and hold very still,
is he like the dog in Tenebrae?
He's like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park in Jurassic World. Just, if you really want to get his attention, you got to pull out a red sparkler. I think we should have a crossover. Find out somebody pulls the mask off and finally reveals that Michael Myers has really been a T-Rex this whole time. That can't happen. But anyway, another thing I appreciate, I really dig the 13 jack-o'-lanterns, because they look real. Number one, they don't look like CGI mess like, you know, 2018's jack-o'-lantern did. But I love that. I also love the fact that, like, the ones that represent the Rob Zombie movies are kind of like in the background and like the quickest to, like, kind of, and here they are and they're gone. I'm sorry if I offended anybody.
So hold on a second. So each one of them was supposed to represent a movie?
Represent a Halloween movie, yeah.
Well,
like
why would there be
like the
13?
franchise?
Would there be 12?
Because there were
the
8 of the... Wait, because there were 8 of the original, then there's Rob Zombie's 2... Yeah. Oh, this is the 12th. Sorry, did I miscount? Okay, 12.
Yeah.
This Halloween Ends is going to be the 13th. Anyway, I can't count. I can't do math. Okay, I appreciated the 12 jack-o'-lanterns of Halloween.
So wait, were they like sort of designed to represent the the jack-o'-lantern
Not
in
really.
those movies?
Like, they were all on fire,
Yeah.
but if you look at them in sequence, I remembered seeing the two Rob Zombie ones were kind of like the smallest and then the most in the background, or at least that's what I saw.
Yeah.
And they seem to kind of like be there and then go out, and then all of a sudden, 1, 2, or 1 and 2, not 1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
of the 2018 and kills and everything like that.
I think another
just thought, nice.
Yeah. Something else to point out is that as of this movie, Halloween has now caught up in terms of just having the most number of entries in a franchise. Well, I mean, it's tied with Friday the 13th, which had that spot for such a long time, like since 2009, or even before that, because I think Friday the 13th was always kind of like ahead of all the other franchises because they basically released one every year in the 80s. But as of like Halloween ends, Halloween is going to overtake Friday the 13th. So that's I mean, we'll see how long that lasts, but
reclaim the throne, Michael. That makes me happy though.
That'll be part of the new Friday the 13th, where Pamela Voorhees was just like, they thought they could take away your spot, Jason. But now you have to have another movie.
Yes. The 13th movie! You've been away from audiences for far too long. But anyway, another positive that I really appreciate is I love Brian the bartender. He's so clearly, I mean, if he is an actor, he is a brilliant actor, because there is nothing of performance in his performance. He's just talking like a man who works his shift and can go on as long as you're willing to listen to him. And I just get the best sense from him. Like, his character is even named Brian after the actor. His name is Brian Mays, the man. And I don't know if I want more of him in the movie, because I don't know if he'd be able to carry anything beyond like kind of what he does. But what he does so well. He's like my Sandy for Friday the 13th, you know? Like,
Yeah.
Like,
I
love
honestly,
the waitress in Friday the 13th. I love the bartender in Halloween Kills.
I honestly couldn't understand a thing he was saying. And
I love it.
I don't want to say like too much about him because I think that we'll get into like complaint territory. Not anything specifically with his character, but just maybe more so in terms of like the people in general and that scene. But I could not understand a thing he was saying. I was just like, should I put on the subtitles for them? Like, nah.
He's just talking shit.
Yeah, I mean, no,
It's
he just
great.
like, it definitely feels like a real person for sure. Like I like that. It doesn't feel like he's in the movie, you know. It's just like it's real, you know. So
he makes me want to visit Haddonfield, you know. Like that's the feel I get. It's just like, ooh, people like you, awesome. Mm-hmm. I am really fond of the sequence back at Laurie's with Michael Myers, kind of like ascension, as it were, or whatever.
The firefighter scene.
Yeah. I don't mind the Bruce Lee of it all, because if Bruce Lee can do it, why not Michael Myers?
It's a fun sequence.
Yeah.
I
dig that.
Yeah, and I like the fact that he was kind of like, we see that he survived because he was like hiding in the gun shed closet thing with the steel door that came down. So that was a good way to. I mean, not only did that kind of explain the end of Halloween 2018, where we kind of cut back to the basement and then he's not there. So it just like, okay, because he went and hid in the little storage shed there. So that was nice. And I noticed, because I noticed this when they released the trailers, very My Bloody Valentine 3D, when he takes the pickaxe into the firefighter's mask.
Nice. Yeah, I like the kills. Again, like the kills, I mean, we'll see as we keep going on, because I'm, you know, but well, yeah, actually, because we're getting there. But hold on. The next thing that I like is the hospital arrival. Just in terms of, I adore the way it unfolds, you know, with trauma. Like, we get a sense of like the people we've lost, the people that Karen and Allison have lost the male figure of the household, with Ray. And I don't really, I like it because it made me care about Ray through them. I don't care about Ray, but because they care about him,
Yeah.
I care about him.
And well, even like the bloody hands and the sink and the wedding band, because I feel it's almost like she forgot about Ray in the because they were so caught up in the adrenaline of everything. Because even in 2018, when Laurie sees Michael has like arrived at the compound and she's like yelling at Karen to get downstairs, and Karen's like, "Where's Ray?" And just like, "Get downstairs."
Right.
So it's like almost like it hadn't even dawned on her that she had lost him. And there is a scene, actually, it's in the extended cut, where she goes into the morgue, and I wish that this scene was actually. I mean, I'm glad that it was omitted because it was just like it was weird because the morgue attendant was like, "You can't be in here. You can't be in here." Because it made me like think like no, because he wouldn't be there because his body was in the house. It's like basically burned up with everything else there. So he's like lost forever. So I did kind of like that, and just in terms of like it almost was this realization, almost like because now that like we've survived, but now like everything is kind of coming back. And like we're getting grounded again. So, but the thing is, and I mean, again, I'm not gonna like go into complaint territory, but that's a scene where I wish that they had like held on it a little bit longer because it does feel very rushed. Like the morgue stuff obviously extends it, but like that's not how you extend a moment like this. Like there should have been more with her and Allison, and it just felt, and not even like that, but just the stuff of like her washing the bloody hands and noticing the ring, like that could have been held a little bit longer on the screen.
It could have, but I the fact that it was included at all, the fact that we went there, and the fact that also I like the fact that Karen gets to kind of like have her feelings privately, so she can be there for her daughter when her daughter needs to completely unleash in the stairwell. And that first introduction of the line of like, you know, he'll always be with us even though we can't see him, and all of that. That was, all of this was like so encouraging as an entry point, you know, into the movie. So and then what follows after that, which is a huge bonus for me, is the Sandra and Phil kill. My God, that sequence with this sweet, for those of you who don't know their names, the elderly couple that get it in their house, and really establish for me for the first time within the framework of this movie what a fucking asshole Michael Myers is in this continuity. And I like it. I like that he is a threat. I like that I'm not going, yeah, when he kills. I like that it's as gruesome as it is. It's painful in its gruesomeness, but it's also painful emotionally, because watching Sandra have to hear her husband killed, because I don't remember how much she sees of it.
Oh, she watches the whole thing.
But then I mean, she really gets to, eventually when she's just sitting right there. That, oh my God. But even everything, just like as she's trying to get out the kitchen door, and just her scream cry, you know, as he's like breaking the fluorescent light tube and like coming towards her and everything like that. And I feel like there was a little extra footage there. I'm not sure, but I feel like in the extended cut they held on a few shots a little bit longer.
It did feel like there was more kills, like more more extended kills. Yeah.
And I ate it up. In a horrible way. But I mean, I guess I'm a masochist. Like, yeah, hurt me movie, and it did, and it was so good. But it was, oh God, I love feeling sad, but also a strange kind of rush of adrenaline that's fear-based. You know, that thing. That movies. There are a lot of movies that don't do that nowadays. There are a lot of requels that don't do that, and I was grateful for it with the two of them. So that's a big positive for me.
Definitely. I feel like they felt like more real people than like other characters that we'll get to later on. That I did appreciate them, and I did like, you know, seeing her again. And I liked their chemistry too, as like this married couple, and I love the line that he says something about they're like, oh, the old Strode place is on fire or something, or like they don't say that,
Right.
but then he says, well, she
Yeah.
lives a highly flammable lifestyle, and she's like, don't you be talking shit about that woman, she'll fuck you up.
Yes. Yes. Again, world building.
Yeah.
Like they live in Haddonfield. They know who Laurie Strode is,
Yeah.
and they both have opinions of her.
Yeah.
Like I dig that. I totally dig that.
Just because we got a little ahead of this, but just because like within that first 20 or so minutes, I really do kind of love like the scene transitioning at that point, because we do start off with the Cameron discovering Hawkins, and then segueing into the flashback, and then I think we start off like after the titles, it's like at the bar, which I mean like I have grievances, but we'll talk about that later. But still, like that's typical. Like we're not gonna go right into it like, you know, other movies, you know, after the height of the action before the titles, you know, you want to mellow out a bit, and we're kind of reintroducing these characters again. And not that I'm like particularly fond of Tommy's speech or whatever, but I did like how it ended, of him just like, here's to you, Laurie, like wherever you are, smash cut to them on the back of the truck with her just like screaming in pain with this like gut wound and just bleeding everywhere.
Yes.
It was just like, it was just like, wherever you, like, we don't know where you are, but it's like this, we like, just in case you forgot, you know, if you're tuning in, this is where she is. And that's then where we get the famous scene from the trailer of the fire trucks zipping by her. Let it burn! And I loved too how like even Judy Greer, or like Karen, was like, she, because you know, like the entire last movie she's just like, oh, like mom's crazy or whatever, and then at this point she's like fully on board, like, no, like don't go back, you know. It's so it was nice to kind of see them all kind of conformed to the same ideal of just like, no, let it burn.
They're on the same page.
But again, I don't want to get into like complainy territories, but that's so hard because like every good point is like followed by like 5 bad things. So it's difficult. But no, I really love that, because then that's where we transition to the firefighter scene, and then I think that's where Laurie arrives at the hospital, and we kind of get that like Karen washing the blood off of her hands, and it and then I think directly after that is the scene that you mentioned with
Sandra and Phil.
So I think like it's really strong opening to this point that I'm just kind of like fully on board with this movie, and I was like really into it by then. But
this is where the zigzag really starts taking off. But to zag,
well, no,
because the zig, I guess, is
no. I think there's still like there's a few good things.
No, there are.
To talk about,
because the zig is to, for me, the zig is to the right, to the negative, and the zag is to the left, to the back to the positive. So I'm zagging into my positive. So back to my positive, because I'm looking at a list here.
Okay.
The another thing that I really appreciate, and this is like something that kind of bespeaks, I think, what the movie is trying to do or that I believe the movie is trying to do, to satisfy both arguments. And I think we brought this up, or we touched on it in Halloween 2018. It happens when we get Allison's account in the hospital versus Karen's account of what happened in the hospital. When they're both talking about like why Michael followed Laurie, or why, you know,
how did he know where to go? Place. Yeah,
exactly. And Allison, it's all fact based. She was right there. She witnessed it. She says, you know, Sartain wanted to see it. He was the one who wanted.
It was his obsession, not Michael's.
Exactly. All that stuff. And then you've got Karen, who's kind of like echoing everything she was raised with her mother, with Laurie, just kind of like, no, she put us in the line of fire because she knew he'd come for her, and he did come for her.
Well, I mean, Karen, and this is not a negative, because we're just speaking about like what happens in the movie. Like Karen, like really full on turns into a Karen in some of
Oh
these
yeah.
hospital scenes. Like she's just like, "Do you have enough security guards? I don't think you have enough security guards."
Oh no, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I adore that. But prior to that, just the fact
Yeah.
that like I feel like the reason their accounts are contrasting and we're even zigzagging in the cuts, like back and forth between the two of them, I think it's to kind of like appease audience members, so people who who were really really comfortable with the lore that had Laurie and Michael inexorably linked, whether it was brother or sister or even just killer victim. Like
Yeah.
people who still want to feed off of that, they can believe Karen's side, and people who don't want that, who love the fact that in the original movie, no, without continuity, for any sequels or anything that happened, the fact that the thing that terrifies them the most is some random guy saw some random girl and said you. For no reason other than she just happened to be the one that he decided you're going to be the one I scare. I'm going to kill your friends and I'm going to terrorize you
I didn't look at it like, like a choose your own adventure within the choose your own adventure. I looked at it more of just like Karen not having the information, but Allison kind of sort of amending the complaints that people had made with 2018, and just in terms of like, why would this? Because I mean, like the Sartain storyline was heavily criticized. I think I think you even said like you had an issue, even though you really do appreciate 2018, how that was like clearly a flaw with the movie. So it was almost like kind of their way of acknowledging it, without like maybe the whole thing with Karen was to kind of like buffer the like, we're sorry, but like we're still gonna make excuses.
Like a little. Well, but like a little column A, a little column B, and if you want to adhere to either one of them, you can. But also, if you just want to see it as two different people having two different sides of the same story, then you can.
What are your thoughts on Allison in this movie?
I mean, we can talk about that in the positives. I think everything that she does and everything that she handles, because I mean she's large. Strikingly enough, she I don't think she does as much in this movie as she did in the first one. Like I mean, but in the first one, like there were all these other venues. She decided to go to dinner, then she decided to follow her grandmother out of dinner and leave the family behind, and then she decided to go to the dance, and then she decided to leave. And so I mean, if we're talking agency as decision making and actions that you take, I guess you could make a case that she had more agency maybe, or more examples of agency in 2018. But I feel like there's more internal work going on. Like we catch her in a lot more private moments, a lot more, I don't know, just like things resonating with her, like the way she looks at her grandmother when she does make the decision to leave the hospital, the way she sits there and carries that story about her dad while Lonnie's talking about, the fact that he used to sell him, or they used to smoke peyote together and he used to sell him drugs. And just as she's just sitting there listening, but to having this very vulnerable, moment where she's crying in the backseat of the car, but not attracting any attention and not making the scene about her. I think even when she comes face to face with Michael's more focused on Cameron and then her mother. She's kind of like the bridge between the two of them.
He'll deal with her in hands,
Yeah, right. I mean, it's not a complaint, but I think I love seeing her on screen in this movie.
I mean, I was going to say I liked her a lot, because I was kind of tepid on her in 2018. Like, no big deal. I think I even mentioned in that podcast how she kind of like, had this thing where she was like, clearly it was almost like there was this divide between Karen and grandmother, where it's just like she was on Laurie's side, but then you have the scene where they're at the school and she's like, say goodbye to Michael, because like you're driving your family crazy. So it was just like, are you really on her side? Like, I don't like it was just not as focused, whereas I feel like in this movie she's chosen aside and more so embraced what she has to do. But again, like what she has to do, we'll get to that. But I do like her better here, and we did our final girl ranking, and I don't remember exactly where she placed out of all 86, but I know like we were pretty favorable to her. We were good to her, and I think just like just in terms of like what she does here, like there's a scene later on where she comes out with the shotgun, and even though he like deflects that really quickly, she's like quick to like take out that knife and stab him in the gut. So she's like prepared. She knows what she's got to do. And it's like, and I can't remember if was in the theatrical cut, but when she's like preparing to leave with the mob, or like Tommy and Cameron, she has the knife wrapped up and just like leaves it next to Laurie's bedside and said something about like, you'll need this to protect yourself. I don't remember.
That was it. That was in the theatrical version.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the theatrical version.
Yeah.
And
I think just in terms of her, because this is, if we have to designate a final girl for this movie, I think that it would be Allison, because it's clearly not Laurie. Laurie does nothing in this movie, and Karen
is clearly not Karen.
She doesn't make it out of the movie, so it's there's got to be someone. So I feel like good job, but I mean like not the best movie to represent you as a final girl. So we'll see where she lands in the next one. But I definitely liked her a lot more. Post Halloween 2018, because we don't have any more of those bullshit scenes like her running into the field of mannequins and just screaming because like, oh my god, mannequins. That's so scary.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. She was definitely more in control, Allison, like you said, like had much more agency. And and she got to like basically defy her mother, so it's
and that's always good. Like down with Karen, but
so you're not a fan of Karen in this movie then?
I mean, we'll get into it with my grievances, but but another person who I am a fan of, again, just in terms of like what she was allowed to do and in terms of like what I got from her when she was on screen, is Lindsay. Particularly with that sack of bricks or rocks, I can't remember which it is, that she pelts Michael with. We won't talk about the rest of the scene, just the preceding scene yet. But the brief pursuit that follows along the banks of the river, I feel like it sets her up in a way that I already feel the movie has kind of locked and loaded her. There's something about just watching that actress listen to Tommy's speech, the way she listens and the way she just kind of like observes, because she's been largely an observer up until that point in the park. So the fact that like we finally get to see her be proactive and fight Michael and not fuck it up, I find incredibly encouraging and also completely believable. Like I'm just like, yes, you are a fighting bitch. You are a biting.
Well, I mean, like, okay,
biting bloodhound.
Yeah, first of all, Kyle Richards, so like same actress, returning to play the role 43 years later. So already like incredible. And I was surprised because I mean like the only like I just know Kyle Richards mostly from like the original Halloween, but she's also like a Real Housewife of Beverly Hills. So it's just kind of like I didn't expect her, like I was not expecting that performance from her or that level of her to like kind of rise to the occasion. And not that like I feel like this is a character that is so peripheral in the original, like she could have really gone on to be anything else this many years later. So it's I don't feel that anything's inconsistent because like this is she's like they built it up like she was affected by this happening to her so many years ago, but just like I didn't need to see that she was prepared for this like in a way that like Laurie had prepared for this or whatever. I just like seeing that like she's sees these kids in the park, those little asshole kids, and she just has this sort of like this maternal instinct to just go and protect them and just be like, we're your parents, sort of thing. And yeah, like when she does kind of see like, there's Michael, I've got to do something, and is really the only one who effectively fights back against him. I think like even compared to like any other mob member in the movie or later on, like I like she's really the one that like knows what she's doing, it seems, and she knows when to run. And that moment of her, you know, as brief as it is, of, you know, and it is extended in the extended cut, which again I feel that they should have kept every tense moment of that scene in the movie, because I was gripping, like, they're gonna kill Lindsay, like, no, you, especially after what she just did, like, no, you're not gonna do this.
No.
So yeah, she's, you know, like probably one of the best parts of the movie, just in terms of like character wise for me. And that's yeah, that was probably the scariest that, you know, Halloween Kills got to being a scary movie for me, because that was frightening. Yeah. And also I noticed that they like the music completely like drowned out at that moment. Like it was like a chase scene with no sound. And it was like, and because this is John Carpenter scoring it again, and we know from the original where, you know, like that whole thing of just like, is it effective with the music? Is it not? And it's like, it was like, it didn't need the music there, because it was almost like it's so quiet that it made it feel like nobody's around. Nobody's there to save her. Like her support system has all been taken out. So it almost like added to the tension, because then especially where she's like heavily breathing, hiding behind that tree, having him like not hear her or whatever. I did want to ask you though, is there more to that scene? Because
there should be.
When they return or when they find her, she is not where she was before. She's kind of closer to the bridge, and she looks a lot bloodier. I don't even think she was bloody at all when we left her. Like she's like got blood coming out of her mouth or like on her face. She's like covered in dirt. So I don't know if there is like more to it. Like he found her and like stabbed her or roughed her up or something, and then left her for dead. Because that's the impression I get. I just look at that and just like, what, are we missing something here?
I'm wondering if they shot, you know, like the attack scene over by the vehicle, and then shot like the aftermath when they find her, and maybe there was supposed to be something and they either ran out of time or ran out of money and figured, well, he already roughed her up at the car, so people will just think that blood is from, because I mean he really slams her into that car. Granted, we don't see, you know, like her, while
she's running or hiding, like
gushing out of her. Yeah. So. We don't see it, but I think they might have been. What I get from it is that they. Yeah, is that they shot it. They meant to shoot more, and they just ran out of time or money or both, or maybe she had a conflict with her schedule. That happens too, and they couldn't, you know, finish it off the way they wanted to, and they figured, well, who's going to pay attention to that except for two guys on a podcast?
I think a lot of people noticed it, but I did notice that there is a commentary on the movie with the director, I think also Danny McBride and Jamie Lee Curtis and Judy Greer. So I don't know. I was like, should I listen to that and just like kind of see like when they get to that specific scene if they mention it? But I couldn't be bothered to. I'm just like, I don't want to hear, especially with Jamie Lee Curtis. Like not like she's a great storyteller and I love like listening to her. But I know that like if Jamie Lee Curtis is involved in a commentary, it's nothing is, there's probably like the information that I want to hear about a movie is probably not going to be told, because she tells more like things that are like different aspects of the movie, which is still great to hear. But I just knew that like that's not a commentary that's probably going to be very conducive to me or for me to like learn more about the movie that I want to know about it.
I mean, the luck side of it is that, you know, where it might be in your favor in terms of that aspect. She's not in the scene, so she might not have anything to say about it. Although, as I'm saying that, I'm realizing that has nothing to do.
But then she'll just be like, "Oh, I can tell them about like what I did today or whatever." I don't know if anyone listening has listened to the commentary on Halloween Kills. Like, yeah, like let us know. Did they mention anything about the the Lindsay scene?
I'm gonna listen to it at some point. So if I get to you
but if
before
someone
they do,
but if someone wants to leave a comment or something, and you can tell us, do we have to listen to it, or should we just skip it if you've heard it?
I used to listen to commentaries so much. Yeah. Oh my god! Like in the early days of DVDs, when that was the new thing in commentaries.
If the movie didn't have a commentary, it'd be like, I don't want that.
Exactly. It was like, oh, you've got a trailer and like a chapter menu. Good for you.
Oh god, some don't even have trailers on them. Like I know, like the Blu-ray for The Faculty has nothing. It might be like animated menus. Like
no, some of them don't even have that. Some of them just start playing automatically, and once it reaches the end, it just cycles back to the beginning of the movie. Like. And that's Blu-rays. Like,
that's like special features. At least
we had menus,
special features,
and trailers.
Free rewind. You know, that's what they used to do in the days when there was VHS. You had to rewind it before you returned it to the video store,
or you paid the rewind fee, and that was a bitch. But I
worked at a video store for like a minute, and there was a machine that basically just did that. It took like a second.
Oh yeah. We had one shaped like a '57 Chevy that we would pop the tape into, and it would light up when it rewound. Anyway, okay, back to the pod. There's another aspect of this that, in a broader sense, I appreciate in terms of like what I think the movie is trying to do. Especially with this flashback being present in it. I love Laurie blaming herself in one scene for all of this and for everything happening and for Michael still being alive and all of that. And then that like moments later, Frank is blaming himself, and she gets to finally hear somebody else who has carried that night with them and blamed themselves for it, and felt like kind of like that was my night, like that was my story. Because I think that's a very human thing to do. We tend to cast ourselves as the narrator in our own lives, or as the central figure, the protagonist, as it were. When I find, and this is just a little insight to me, I find it so much more interesting if you see yourself as not even an antagonist, but as a character in someone else's story. Like it makes you feel immeasurably more powerful, and I don't know, maybe kind of like takes the edge off of any anxiety you may feel. And so I don't know, just the fact that Laurie gets to kind of like be dimensionalized in a way and hear somebody else be like, no, I've been carrying this night with me for the past 40 some years, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's really my fault, not yours. And for us as an audience to kind of go like, guys, it's neither of your fault. Like, and I mean, if you want to blame yourselves, go for it, but that's not going to get you anywhere. You just need to take action now.
To be honest,
what you believe is what you believe, go for it.
Yeah, most of the Frank and Laurie scenes, I kind of tuned out. It's
just that aspect.
I understand what you're saying. I just feel like it just because everything felt so redundant to a point where it's just like, okay, now we're gonna go to the hospital where things slow down, and I kind of like, those are the scenes where I'm just like, okay, it's just talking, it's just. Mm-hmm. We're just at the talkies. I don't know how much more good stuff I have to say. I will say to whoever played Dr. Loomis, at least on the aesthetic end of it, amazing. That like looks exactly like him. Voice,
so great.
We'll talk about the voice in the bads, but I mean like, but physically like and I saw behind the scenes pictures of like the process and the makeup and the prosthetics, and like they really did a great job making him look like Donald Pleasence.
Yeah. I would love to see. Yeah, I haven't gone in on the special features or anything yet, but I can't wait to dive into it.
I don't know if I saw that. I think I just saw that on like an Instagram post, so I'm not sure if it's on the the Blu-ray.
Okay, well, who knows? Yeah. You never know. I just have like 3 more things that I can go over very quickly. Sure. One thing, while I'm not a huge fan of the whole Big John, Little John thing, I did find a way to kind of watch the movie, watch them in the movie this time. That actually gives me a lot of pleasure. At one point, I think it was when they both grab their knives, and Big John grabs the charcuterie knife, and Little John grabs the slightly larger, but not that much larger carving knife. I kind of got an image of the two of them as cartoon dogs in a Disney movie. And I mean, like, background characters, like, think Lady and the Tramp and think, is it Jacques and Trusty? Where you've got kind of like a sweet, but, slightly, not so sharp, larger character who's just, who you don't want to see anything bad happen to. And then you've got, like, you don't want to see anything bad to happen. But then you've also got this kind of feistier little one that's just kind of yappy and you're mongrel and all that stuff. So I that's what I get from them. And I think that's how I'm going to see them in the movie from now on, because it makes it so much more fun.
It's like Disney. Me. It's Cinderella. We're gonna spend all this time with the mice, and not worry about the story.
Exactly.
I did want to say because now that you bring them up, there are a few things not particular to them, but I guess I guess the one kill scene. That's another thing in the extended cut. I think that Big John's kill scene, like it seemed eyes. A lot more like there was like. Goo rushing out of there. It was gross. But I do appreciate, I mean, I don't like the way that it was shot, because I feel like it was kind of like cut back to it when he got stabbed initially in the armpit. Like I don't like the way that was edited, but I like the fact that he's got his arm, when he was like going from room to room, he's wearing the wife beater and he's got his exposed armpit, so I always like things like that. Like it always goes back to Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Pam. Is that the character's name? Where, she's got the exposed back, and then we see kind of like the back, like the skin, and then knowing that she's going to be hooked onto the thing there. So it's just like things like that where it's just like, that it's kind of like an exposed body part that's, like right there for someone to put sharp metal objects into. So I do like that. But I think of that scene, because we talked about the house already, because the recreation of the 1978 version of the house is amazing, but maybe this is just kind of like the architectural like fan in me of just like being interested in stuff like that. But I loved that this house was also now like renovated to be to be current, and like it looked great in there. I want to live in that house. I don't think it has a bathroom though. That's the one thing. But it just like in terms of house. Like I did, because I did a video last year on my channel of just kind of like the evolution of the Myers house throughout all of the movies, and I think like that's something to be said in this continuity is how faithful they were to that, like the original like architectural structure of the house, because obviously we all know Halloween 5. I still love that house. I even though it's it is what it is, but I love that one. And then you have 6, which is clearly like it's not like it's ish like the Myers house, but there's a lot of differences. To this point, like the resurrection one was, I think that one looked like garbage. I think it looked like a cheap set, but they made it, look even more dilapidated than it did in 78. But sure. But this one, just the fact that we do have that recreation, and now it's like the same structure. Like that to me is like again like the whole aspect of Haddonfield. Still being Haddonfield from 1978, but like looking at it 40 years later. And I love the fact that it's painted in the same like cornflower blue that the real house is painted now as to where it sits by the train tracks. So it's almost like with the red trim too. So it was almost like, oh well, let's make it. It's meta in a way. It's just like we're gonna make it look how it does now.
Totally,
but still with like the back part on it too, because it wouldn't have been moved. So I liked that, and I liked that the upstairs rooms were kind of the walls were torn down to make like larger, like it just looked really nice. I want to live there. Like I want to live in as much as like those characters annoy me, like I love the fact they're like do you know whose house this is? Like, you don't fuck with this. Like, I would buy that house. Be like, that's a murder house. Like, I want to live there and make it look nice. So there's actually
and then freak kids out.
There's because if you have the in the book Taking Shape 2, which goes over all of the unused ideas for sequels, like leading up to I think this was right before 2018 came out. And initially, in one of the Halloween 4s, one of the versions of them, the Myers house was included, and Jamie, kind of like, instead of going to school one day, she goes by the Myers house, and it's now, like, people are moving in. It's like this couple, straight couple, obviously, and they're like, they've renovated the house. So I feel like that was kind of an aspect that they took from that script, because something I've noticed with the Blumhouse movies so far is that they have taken a lot of not used material, that because obviously Mustafa Akkad's company owns the rights to all these scripts that they would have had. So I feel almost the way that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride do go through this material, and they're just like, let's kind of look for things that, you know, we can use to implement
and like, oh, that's interesting, let's put that in here. Absolutely.
I appreciated that aspect of it for sure. And I also, another thing that I noticed is that, I mean, I guess this applies to everyone except for Allison, but it's almost like a thing, because I think the one guy said it, like, anyone who goes in that house, it dies. And every character, because the one kid with the skull silver shamrock mask, he got killed. He's the one that went in and stole the candy. The two Johns were killed. Cameron was killed. Karen was killed. So it's just like everyone who literally went in there is dead. And I guess Hawkins is the exception of that too. So
Allison. Yeah,
Hawkins and Allison. So it's almost like, it would be cool if that was sort of the thing. It was like, it's almost like The Grudge. Like, if you go into the house, you're gonna die. So now Michael has unfinished business. He has to make sure that he kills those two for going in there.
Yeah, because it's almost like a side character and go into the Myers house because you'll die.
Because in the original, that's the whole reason why Michael goes after her, because he or she goes up to the front porch, and, you know, maybe that's enough. You just have to step on the front porch, and that'll kill you.
Lonnie.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Lonnie for sure. And because, you know, that's why, like, Tommy is just like, no, you don't go up there. So it's kind of like, it brings back the idea of that lore from the original that was kind of like wiped out after you find out that they're siblings, of just like, no, you stay away from that house. Oh, and I love that they showed, I mean, I don't love it, but I love the continuity of having the dead dog and finally seeing it and just being there's a dead dog here, because all we see in the original is the reactions of
you just see he got hungry. Yeah.
Maybe it was a skunk.
Yeah, right. Okay, just two other things. I like how Cameron is emphatically more afraid in the house, since we're talking about the house, than Allison is. I like the fact that you already touched upon the whole knife thing, because, I mean, literally, I don't think I ever noticed how quickly that transpired, that she took the knife out of the wound, kind of wiped it clean, stashed it like in the side of her belt, and then immediately went out to shoot, got averted, and then pulled out the knife and started stabbing him, just shanking him. And but everything about, I mean, it's also liking what that actor is doing, the one who plays Cameron, in that scene, because I'm scared when it's going on, when he's like moving around. And I like that his terror seems to be also rooted in the gravity of like what he knows he's going up against, the fact that like it was different when there was a big mob behind me or in front of me. Now I am in the dark, alone with a gun, in a skirt, and
was he still in the skirt?
And then I think
I don't think he, no. I think by that point he was.
Oh, really?
No, he was in. He had changed out of it.
Oh, okay.
I'm fairly certain that only was at the beginning.
I don't remember.
Once he's at the hospital when they cross paths again, I think he's already changed out of the.
He's in the skirt when they're at the park, though.
I don't think so.
When they're at the park, he's in the skirt.
I'm gonna look. I've got.
Okay, go ahead and look.
My thing, because now I'm.
I could have sworn he was still in that skirt when he was at, because he was wearing a different shirt.
Like at the beginning of the film when he finds.
No. When they were at the park. Okay. But anyway, I just dig seeing a situation where, I mean, and maybe this is just like a holdover from not even Halloween 2 really, but really I'm thinking Halloween 4 with Grady and with,
Grady.
even though he dies, but he kind of steps in, like the hero role and everything like that. And I like the fact that Cameron isn't depicted that way. He's not depicted as a hero. He's depicted as a frightened kid. And I also like the fact that it doesn't seem like it's just, let's turn this on its head because it's the new millennium or anything. I mean, Allison has every reason in the world at this particular point to be as kind of like just to have a higher bar of tolerance for what's going on than Cameron does, because she's come face to face with more of it. She has put a knife into Michael Myers at this point, so that's one more thing that I like. And the last thing that I have is again a broader thing that I feel like the movie is trying to say. I feel like they're trying to say that to want to understand Michael is to fail to survive. The second you crave, because for me it's not about the house. Not that I'm saying it isn't about the house, but for me it's much more about craving some kind of explanation or insight to Michael. Mm-hmm. Anyone who wants to understand him is doomed. And that's why within the lore of the movie, I feel like Loomis, it's almost like the movie is kind of giving back Sam Loomis his argument. He does something in the original movie arguing that his patient is evil, something no doctor should ever do. And yet, to survive in that movie, you have to believe he is evil and get out of the way, run away. And in this movie, I feel like anybody who's trying to kind of, and it starts in 2018 with the podcasters and Sartain. All of them want this insight to Michael and want to understand like what's going on behind the mask and like what motivate. He's not a monster. He's a man. I'm being the podcasters now, because they're British. But and all of them are doomed. I believe for that reason, the fact that they're not willing to just say that's evil, stay away from it, do the best you can to knock it down if you have to, but fucking run. Yeah. And don't stand in his footsteps and look in the window trying to speculate what he experienced, because it happens twice in the movie. Two people who attempt to stand where he stood and look through the window both get taken out. Yeah. And so that's something that I really, really appreciate as far as this movie. Yeah. Did you get an answer to your question about?
He's not wearing, like, as soon as we see him at the hospital, he has a hoodie on, and I couldn't really. He has to be wearing pants or jeans with.
No,
like,
wait,
he's
that's
not wearing a skirt.
That's not satisfactory.
He's not wearing the. He was not wearing a skirt. Believe me.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Are we done talking about good? Because we're already at an hour and 18
that's all the good
here.
I had.
That maybe we should have just done 2 pods for Halloween Kills, like one that was all positive and then another one for the bad.
Well, you were worried we weren't going to have enough positive stuff to say.
Yeah.
So,
well, I feel like the bad isn't going to be
my negatives.
The negative is not going to be
there's
as
not
nuanced.
That much to delve into.
Well, the first point I have here, I just wrote. Someone actually wrote this script. ?
The first time I felt that was Tommy's speech.
Yeah. That was the first instance, like when I had seen the movie in the theater, because even though I do love that that first 20 minutes or so, once he starts talking and then the headlight or the spotlight going over to them, I'm just like, what kind of story are we telling here? Like, what is this bullshit? Because
what a lame talent show too.
I know that the couple, the doctor and nurse, like when they were getting all like annoyed because they're like, can you keep it down? We're trying to watch a talent show, and just like, really? Like I think whatever's going on over here is more interesting than what's on the stage. You got like the three mermaids singing very poorly. And that was like another thing with the interactions in the bar, because I feel like who I'm interested in are those people, are the people who are like making the commotion, or they're coming up, but we're just seeing like shots of like the bottom of their mouth, or just like their glasses and things like that. Like, we're in the perspective of this doctor and nurse couple who, like, I don't care about them, I don't like them, they don't seem like very interesting people that I don't want to know about their story or whatever. It's just like, your boss is acting inappropriate. Like, who cares? Like, you're in a Halloween movie, act like you're in a Halloween movie. Like, we don't waste time with shit like this. And I feel like so many of the interactions in that bar, because like you were saying, like, you talked about the bartender, and it's just like, we're just wasting time. And these, like, it just feels like everyone is in the background, and you're just like, you know, you have Marianne come in, and she's like, oh, I'm a nurse, or something like that. You just like little conversations, and it's just like, I realize that maybe they're just trying to make this feel as grounded in reality as possible, but that doesn't make interesting movie. Like, movie makes interesting movie. Like, have your characters fucking be characters in a movie. And it's gonna sound like Harry Styles. It's a movie, but it's
it feels like
it
a
feels
movie.
like, this does not feel like a movie. And yeah, when like Tommy gets up there and it's just like, and again, I talked about David Gordon Green and like these fucking zooms and swoops and shit, and that he does, and it's just like, sometimes less is more, and like, just keep the camera still. You don't need to like constantly be like pulling in, or like pushing in and then pulling out, and then like a quick pull, like just it's distracting. I'm not even hearing the dialogue at this point, because I'm more focused on like, why am I being like, if you're making a YouTube video, sure, go fucking nuts. If you're, trying to keep people like, oh, what's that? But like, don't fucking do that when we're trying to tell a story here. It's messy. And like you said, like, especially with like Lindsay, where it just feels like she's observing the conversation as well. Like, that's what I feel like mostly with all these characters. Like, at this point, it still all feels like, this is the doctor and the nurse. I don't even know their names. Like, it's like we're watching their story, and everyone else is just kind of like a character in it.
Right, they're Vanessa and Marcus.
Yeah,
I think
again another carryover from 2018.
Yeah. And I knew who they were the second I saw them. Like, that was cool. But next thing I have, just because, time, is the quote, "This was a safe place, and now it's not anymore."
Oh, the Karen on the TV, yeah.
That is a howler. Like, that is... I don't know if that was... Again, as many jokes, or not jokes, as many laughs as I found in 2018 that I don't believe were intended to be laughs, but I don't ever feel like I'm laughing at the movie. That line, I can't help but wonder, like, did you want me to laugh at that? I'd love to. That's one reason to listen to the commentary, is just to hear them comment on that line if they do. Why is it there? Because it makes the foundation you're laying for the whole red herring shit and the angry villagers of it all, built on like melting doughy clay. Like, it's not, and I know we're not supposed to create an argument that we can get behind for the angry Haddonfield citizens, whatever.
Yeah.
But all of that red herring shit with like that, with the car, and with Vanessa going out to the car and telling Marcus to go like check it out while she goes in and pulls all the original cast out on.
I noticed there was a lot of like there's like a running thing, like, and I noticed that this is even though like there's a lot of things that David Gordon Green and Danny McBride are taking from like the continuity of their first movie of 2018 and bringing it here. There's a lot of unnecessary bullshit that like didn't even need to like get as much focus as it did. Like, the Marcus is like, oh, my stethoscope, like that nurse has it still. That was a fucking line from 2018 when they were leaving, and he's like, oh wait, I can't find my stethoscope, and then that's the thing that he tries to strangle Michael with at the end. It's just like, who cares?
Right.
Like, you're wasting time on these props that don't matter. Like, just know your movie. So that all annoyed me.
And all the stuff with them thinking that Michael's the one in the car. Like, I can't be scared of it after the first viewing because now that I know it's not him, I'm just waiting at this point for the scene to be over. You know what I mean?
I mean, like, that character, I forget his name, the other patient. I feel like
does he have a name? I don't remember.
He does. Well, they mentioned it in the 2018.
Oh, they did. Yeah, right.
Because Sartain is like, he doesn't like when your shoelaces are untied or whatever. Basically, I just call him the Penguin because he had the umbrella and
it's like Oswald Cobblepot.
He does, yeah. And I feel bad for him because, like, it's just like he did not deserve that. But at the same time, it's just like, this is not his movie. It's not his moment for us to feel bad about. Like, we didn't, like, let us feel bad about Laurie, about Karen, about Lee Brackett. And this might be my biggest gripe with, I mean, like, I'm annoyed with things with Marion, but just the fact that they bring Brackett back and do absolutely nothing with him. And it almost felt like they set it up because they bring Laurie in, and then you hear someone say, like, Laurie Strode is my mother, or whatever. Karen says it, and he kind of, like, looks up because he's like, Laurie? And then we kind of, we go down to his name tag that says Brackett, so we know it's him. And I just feel like, in that moment, I'm just like, I feel this rush of emotion because it's like, you could tell that this man has suffered a lot in his life, even though Halloween 2 is not part of the continuity, despite the fact that we get a flashback of it in this movie when Lindsay, I guess, like, when they're just like, oh, her babysitter Annie was killed, and then we see him, standing over her, and from the scene from Halloween 2 where he discovers her body, you let him out, that shit. But it's in that moment, I'm just kind of like, this is building up for something. Like, there's going to be an interaction between these two characters. He's going to come to her because it's almost like, in a way, after losing your daughter, Laurie is probably what I would think is like the closest thing to a daughter that he would have. That it almost like, even there's already groundwork that's laid that as like a writer and a director, you don't even need to work on that because that's already, John Carpenter has already done that work for you. And you're basically like, you have it. It's put in the palm of your hand, and you're just be like, oh, it'd be fun if we just put him in the movie later on and have him repeat that same line in a different context, and that'll be his moment in the movie.
And, like, never have him and Laurie interact also.
No, yeah. Like that would have been a huge moment. Even if he just came in there and just like, Laurie, I heard you were here. And just like, that was the thing. And her
She's just like, laying there unconscious again, just like in Halloween 2. So,
so just
he
like,
could have.
You're bringing back the characters, and, and I think by and large, like, they were very unsuccessful. I think Lindsay is the exception to that. But I mean, Tommy, this is my least favorite version of Tommy. Like, too. Where was Paul Rudd? I want I want
or even
socially
just
awkward
the actor, like that guy who's just not getting called. Like, they could find him this time, but nobody cared. So I don't know. That's upsetting. There's also Anthony Michael Hall, like, can't catch a break. Like, I feel bad for Anthony Michael Hall. And Marion. Oh God. Also, like, when did she become friends with the kids that she never met from the first
Exactly. It felt so forced that these people are all hanging out together and going drinking. Because it's like, she was attacked, like, hundreds of miles outside of town. And then it's just like, I mean, maybe at some point there was, like, a group, like, when
a
Facebook
Michael Myers anonymous group
in 2007 when Facebook became a thing, and then like someone started like Lindsay went online and started a group and then found Marion and Tommy and or like she probably would have still known Tommy, but just all these people kind of got together.
Right.
But it's also weird that and they like get together every Halloween and celebrate it. I mean, again, like we talked about this in the last episode of just like, have living that trauma and like 40 years later, because obviously like, everybody handles trauma in their own way. And I obviously I can imagine Lori, even though it's like it's a hard pill to swallow to see her living the life that she did for the last 40 years, just to know that here are four other people who encountered Michael on the same night to like a very minor degree of what Lori did. And obviously, like, I feel like, they're still have lives outside of this. But just the fact that it's like, we're going to get together once a year and like commiserate and drink and go to a shitty talent show at the local pub. And
and they even mention, I saw it with the subtitles, and there's some line that I didn't catch ever before when I was watching the movie. And I think it's during when they're hovering over Marcus and Vanessa. Just something about like, well, like wonder where he is or something like that. And just like, well, he's supposed to be on the bus, like heading on out, like being transported to another place out of Smith's Grove and into the something like that. And I was just kind of like, and you're comfortable with this? You're going to drink in a bar? Oh my, it angers me. Like that you should know better. And while we're complaining about them, like the
returnees,
I can't let Michael's attack on the car that has Marion, Marcus, and Vanessa in it go unmentioned. I don't have much to say, but the way all of those characters go out, whether they're new or whether they were introduced 40 years ago or just 2018. None of them are done a service the way they go out. It is embarrassing how easily they are picked off, particularly Marion. But
that was so disrespectful to that character. I like I mean, like, a paycheck's a paycheck, and I feel like she's another one. Like she's been with this franchise since the beginning, and she's been in so many movies at this point. And she's married to Rick Rosenthal, so it's like she's like literally part of the Halloween family. So I mean, I could understand why they'd be like, "Hey, do you want to come back?" And she'd be like, "Of course." But it's like almost like just to bring her back. It's almost like, yay! Like we brought back this character, brought her back to life, only to take her out in an even worse way. Because I feel like even though, like, jumping into Halloween H2O, where it's just like, I was upset to see that character go out, but I still really love the fact that, she got to be the Drew Barrymore of Halloween H2O or whatever, and have that scene and fight back effectively, might I add, and still kind of be the same character. Like, she still had that spunk to her. She had those lines the one guy's like, do you know smoking kills or what? It's just like, yeah, but I think it's like secondhand smoke kills, like, yeah, but they're all dead or something like that, and then blows smoke in his face. Like, it's just like, that's the feisty Marion Crane not Marion Crane, what was
Marion
Chambers, yeah. Psycho.
Marion Chambers, yes.
And here she's just kind of like, she's just like an old lady who's just like hanging out with.
And also an old lady who makes a horrible life-costing mistake going, this is for Dr. Loomis. Oh!
Yeah.
Like, it is so... I haven't enjoyed it any of the times that I've watched it, and especially for a new timeline that is kind of like taken Lori and the women of her family and kind of like given them back their power, to have an even older woman stumble so horrendously, and such a legacy character, and also to know that, and thusly kind of like put her in your movie as though she is imbued with all of the relevance that she has within the franchise, but she doesn't within your timeline. So what? I don't understand. What is the point? Was the point to kind of like show us, see, she's not relevant in this world? I don't understand. Whatever it is, I don't like it. I don't understand it. I'm angry.
It was I didn't like it. I didn't like the fact that like she's basically like a stormtrooper with her aim. That she would waste that many. Like, she basically, let's break every window, like shoot into it. That was. Oh,
and back in a car with him scaring her, and I'm like, okay, this is one homage I don't need.
And there's another thing that I didn't. Yeah, and that line was very cringy, of just like, this is for Dr. Loomis. But there's another thing that she says, like when they're driving up to the park before, and I had this she's talking about Dr. Loomis. She's speaking in pronouns and just like, nobody listened to him. He was all like blah, 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 blah. And then for them to be like, who? You know, it's just like, that is the worst. Like, this is why this script sucks, because you have shit like that where people have to be like, who? What do you mean? Like, well, we're talking in pronouns. Oh, Dr. Loomis, you know, like, just like, we know who Dr. Loomis is just because these two fucking, like, we don't care about Marcus and Vanessa. We're not like, as much as you're trying to make this their movie, which I don't know why, that like, it's a waste of time for them to like learn about Dr. Loomis, especially when they're minutes away from getting killed. So yeah, fuck, I am not like that. The whole stuff with Lindsay, that kind of amends the scene there, but everything else, I'm just like,
yes,
this is awful. This is not good. And
it's a rough sit for sure.
Speaking, I did mention this before, but I just wanted to say it again because we didn't really like specify. But Brackett's line at the end where you know he says like, "Hey Michael," that's like the whole. Like the ambush, which was very predictable. Like I kind of saw that coming. Like even the first time I saw it, obviously, because we already get like the Karen line where she says "gotcha," which is the same thing that she said in the first one. Like already cringy, but then for Michael to look around at everyone and then you see Brackett and they're like, "Hey Michael, it's Halloween. Everyone's entitled to one good scare," and it's just like. So is everyone in the like? This is I just imagine like they had a conversation beforehand. They're like, okay, we're gonna corner him, and then Brackett will be like, hey, so this one time in 1978, I said this line to Laurie Strode, and I really want to say it to Michael. So before anyone attacks him, do you mind if like I just say this, and then as soon as I say it, then you can attack him? And they're like, yeah, okay, I think we can agree to that. You know, like.
Everybody should have said like lines that they thought were relevant to their characters. Unfortunately, all the characters who we know other than them are pretty much dead. But like Tommy could have said like, "You can't kill the boogeyman," or I don't know.
Damn it! Get me a doctor.
Yeah, on Halloween we get candy. You know.
You've also got.
And are there any other legacy characters? Any other legacy characters in the mob? I don't remember.
I don't fucking no. There was a housewife with an iron. And,
right.
And then there's like a guy in like a tiger onesie or something. He was the one that had the gun.
Right.
Who was just like even like point blank in front of Michael, couldn't hit him, like couldn't shoot him until like after the fact. But it's just like. What are people doing in this movie? And that was even like in the beginning when like in the flashback with Frank, the fact that he shot the guy, like, you know, like all he's doing is he has a rope around his neck. Go around and like go right up to him and shoot him. Like why did you shoot at your partner? Shoot Michael through your partner. That's the thing. There's so many stupid decisions in this movie, and you always bring this up. You always say like there's questionable character decisions. And I get that. Yes. Like, horror movies have to be horror movies. Characters have to make bad decisions. But literally, every fucking person in this movie makes so many bad decisions. Like, Big John and Little John. Someone's broken into your house. What are you going to do? Lock the front door and go after them? Like, no, you're going to fucking go outside, get your cell phone out, and just be like, someone's in our house. Like, send police over. Right. Like, fuck.
I'm still stuck on... the end when Michael gets hate crimed by the town. And what if like regardless of whether they've already been killed or not, what if like legacy characters just started popping up? Like what if Annie was all of a sudden standing there and she was just kind of like, "Hey jerk, speed kills." And then PJ Souls pops up right behind her, Linda, and just goes totally.
Then you obviously have to have Busta Rhymes in there too. It's like, you know, trick or treat, motherfucker.
And
you can even get Sarah from Resurrection coming in and be like, "This is for all of them."
Yes. They may as well have. As well have. That's how ridiculous it is.
What would Tina's line have been? Tina from 5.
Oh Jesus! She would have been like, I'm never serious unless I can help it.
they all just like take a turn like stabbing Michael, just like walking.
It's just saying their horrible lines. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. And then finally, like, get the guy wearing the Donald Pleasance prosthetics to like just jump in and go, a cookie woman, and then just stab him.
But no, but if he did, it'd be like more like cookie. I can't even do the voice. That's it. Yeah. Okay. That's another complaint. Like, where did they find this guy? Like, it's just the worst fucking Loomis impression. You know what they should have got? They could have got like the "We Watched a Movie" guy. Like like that would have been a better.
No.
I would have rather heard that.
Michael. It's mostly just like
German.
Just whispered, yes, German kind of. Michael. But no, I mean the thing is, I wonder if that's even like that actor's voice. Because the way it reads, and this is not a criticism, but the way it reads, it felt kind of like ADRs, like whether the guy did his own voice afterwards and looped it, or whether somebody else did it in post. I'd be really interested to hear like if that's the actor's voice or not. Like that I don't know. Okay, so
I just want to say, like, because we're just speaking of like bad character decisions.
Yes.
I guess Little John.
Oh boy.
And Michael McDonald. I fucking love this actor because he great comedian. He to me is most famous for appearing on Mad TV back in the day. He played a reoccurring character named Stuart. Who's basically just like a big toddler. Yeah.
Yes.
But he was also in the Austin Powers movies. He was if anyone has seen them, he was the guy that got like steamrolled over. Where he was like a security guard, and he just stands there, and they're probably like 50 yards away from him, or like just while the steamroller is slowly moving towards him, and he's just like, no. To the point where he can't say it anymore, and then keeps saying no until he finally gets steamrolled over because he won't move out of the way. And that, I almost feel like, was that a reference to that? Because he's literally standing on the other side of the room, and he's like, Michael. It's for Michael to turn around, and then you just see through the window Michael slowly walking towards him, and you just hear, no! And it's just like, just go out there, walk down the stairs, run down the stairs, out the door.
I hate that moment so much more now because I already don't like that. I mean, I wondered just for myself because I didn't even think about that. I wonder if that moment was more about like Little John not wanting to live without Big John and just seeing Michael and thinking, you know what, I'm just gonna give up. I'm just gonna surrender. But then he says no, so I'm like, well then what? Are you gonna fight or flight? Like, come on, buddy. But okay. Big John and Little John at large though. Like, even that scene with them, like, against those Silver Shamrock mask-wearing shits that are, you know, playing the trick-or-treat prank on them and everything. Yeah. Doing the trick part of the treat. I don't know. I couldn't get behind it. Even though, like, I do still chuckle at that line, Michael Myers stabbed his own sister in the tits. I still chuckle at that. That's a good just because it sounds funny. Because I'm 12 years old inside. But I don't know. There are aspects about the characters that I really, really appreciate, but I know that I'm not supposed to look for representation in everything. Like sometimes, you know, people are just going to be gay because they're gay. But I don't know. The fact that they seem so ill prepared they never really sat well with me because I felt like. I don't know. I wish they had their act together a little bit more. Like, I think what I really want is for a gay character to survive in one of these movies. And maybe I wouldn't have minded so much if there was, like, a gay character who we know is gay, who's, like, there and who fights Michael and who survives and gets to run away, too. Because we got enough of them, enough characters who do that. Yeah. But, and whether they're in the hospital or in the van driving around trying to chase him down or whatever. There's enough people who survive, so I feel like okay.
Are they the first?
Maybe that's what I'm craving.
Are they the first gay characters in the franchise?
Oh God, that's a good question. They feel like it, but I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's anybody who ever struck me as gay or even gay coded.
Hmm.
Because I don't remember anybody really fancying anybody other than, someone who, had genitalia that didn't match.
I don't know. Maybe it will come to us when we do the other movies eventually. But
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it doesn't
But
really.
no, yeah,
I'm not really bothered by representation or anything but that. It's just more so
no.
the fact that they're just more stupid characters. And what I really
Yeah.
hate about that scene too, and this is really like a huge problem I have with David Gordon Green as a director of horror, is that he constantly breaks the tension of these scenes by deciding, well, no, now we're going to go check in somewhere else. Because that scene in particular, when they realize that their house has been breached, someone is in their house and they lock the door, and then immediately we cut back to the hospital. And that's what we see there is then the scene with the penguin, or at least like the beginning of the
Yeah.
scene where he's arrived at the hospital. I know in the extended cut we see more of like the POV shot of him arriving there, which is unnecessary. But the thing that's terrible about that is like we're building tension of this scene at the Myers house with this couple, and I get what they're doing. They're trying to be like, well, where is Michael? Is he at the house? Is he at the hospital? We're having this whole
Right.
bait and switch with this unimportant character of the other inmate, that it's just like, you don't know. I mean, for someone who's just like apparently loves the franchise and is a huge fan of horror, like, you don't know how to direct horror, Mr. Green. I'm sorry, but it's the same thing with the Lindsay scene, where it's just like we're finally coming to a moment where it's just like, yes, like we're building up to it, like Lindsay is in this movie and Michael is coming right after her, and it's just like, now let's go check on the hospital for a more somber moment
No,
with
yeah,
Laurie.
yeah.
And it's like, no, like the hospital should have been like cut like in a quarter and left that sliver in there with like hospital stuff. But it's just it like every moment where it was like things that were happening that were good, it was like he was second guessing himself and being like, no, I think we should go over here now. And it by and large, like, that for me is what ruins this movie, because there's not really a story here. There's not a clear path from the beginning to the end. And if I'm being perfectly honest, like, I need to rewatch all the movies now, which I'm gonna do this Halloween. Well, at least like these months here,
Sure.
because I think that my ranking has changed. I think that I might actually prefer the Rob Zombie movies over this one, because I mean, as for as
I'm
awful
not
as
there. I'm not.
I mean, I'll have to see again. But I mean, like, for as awful as
Yeah,
they
try
are,
to sit
it's
through
just,
the Rob Zombie movies again
I
and
at
get
least
back to me.
at
I'm really
least
curious
there's
to hear.
at least there's like a coherent like through line for the characters. I mean, and it's not fun, it's not enjoyable, but it's there. I'm watching a journey.
Okay.
Halloween 2, like RZH2, actually has some really good cinematography as well. Like, I'm it's a very much like, it's like a as art house as Rob Zombie can be. I'm not trying to make like good points for him, but just like comparatively, I don't like Halloween Kills, because it's just like I'm just watching filler. That's what this movie feels like, is filler to me. And
Well, okay.
no, you say your piece.
No, yeah, because I don't want to comment on like the Rob Zombie movies until we do those pods. But I am anxious to have those conversations with you, absolutely. But with this one, I don't know if it's filler for me so much as and this is a big thing for me. I've mentioned it before. Things that don't interest me, or that maybe I found interesting in the first viewing, and maybe even in the second viewing, but subsequently just feel like such a droney drudge of a direction to go in, when I already feel like I get what you. I said it with 2018. How often I felt like, as I'm writing that wave, I felt like, but I know what they're going for, and whether it works or not, there's enough that works for me to stick around through the stuff that doesn't. With this one, I don't feel that way. I feel it is much more of a zigzag, and I mean, it's gotten to the point where like my complaints are so much broader than little details I can discuss. They're
Yeah.
huge chunks of the movie. Like on the right side of this page, I have Tommy rallying the angry villagers. Everything about that I hate. And then I've got
We didn't even mention
the whole
the tagline of the
Evil
movie.
Dies Tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which actually
Yeah,
Marion was the
'cause-
one that incited. It's just like, fuck.
Yeah. It's you know what, I feel like it's been said, but I mean, and I didn't feel it the first time I saw the movie. That didn't bother me. That usually there's a movie and there's something that bothers everybody and it doesn't even occur to me, and that was the thing the first time I saw this movie. Now I'm just like, wrap it up.
Yeah.
But
My favorite though
whole
is like the
hospital-
one, like because Tommy says
Yeah.
it at the hospital, but then there's the one woman who says it right after, and I don't know what, like this actress, like she's just like overacting it. She's like, "Evil dies tonight," or whatever. Do you know which one I'm?
And also,
she
I
has
just
like the
wrote-
dark curly hair.
Yes, I do. I know exactly who you're talking about, and I was folding laundry then, or I was pissing. I don't know, but I just wrote the whole hospital BS, and I had actually an interesting conversation with one of your patrons, I Heart Slashers, after screening this with him, and I remember he brought up something that I didn't even think of because it was just the second time that I saw the movie, and I remember he brought up something that he had as a criticism for the way they handle the mob pursuing Oswald Cobblepot all the way up the building and everything. The fact that the frontline workers are members of the mob, when he talked about having a lot of family like in the medical field and how you're basically trained to deal with the highest tension situations ever. Every day, you have to be prepared for anything to happen every day, and that those would be the first people to like try to de-escalate and gain some kind of control. And if they don't have control, then they have protocol that they can follow. And they certainly wouldn't just be running upstairs trampling people and saying, yeah, let's get that fucker, that mentally ill man, let's all get him, and that happens a number of times. I couldn't remember if there were people in white lab coats and scrubs running up the stairs and being part of the mob, and there absolutely
I think
were.
like
So
the thing that's like the most egregious to me about that storyline, that subplot, we'll call it, is the fact that, and I have this as a note in a question, nobody knows what Michael looks like. And I say that because this is a man who has been apprehended as he's a well-known serial killer, or not serial killer, but what are they?
Killer.
Multiple killer, whatever the line is.
Multiple murderer.
Bride of Chucky. Yeah.
Yes.
He's a multiple murderer who's been apprehended. He's he's created this huge legacy. Podcasters are traveling across the ocean to interview people about him. That nobody knows what he has gone on the internet, and people know what Jeffrey Dahmer looks like, and Ted Bundy. There's not a picture of Michael Myers' actual face on the internet that people know that's Michael Myers, that they're going to confuse this short round man as Michael and go after. I mean, I get that there's that tension of just everything's crazy and we don't know what's going on, but it took for Karen to be it's not him, and Tommy to be really? You couldn't just look at him and just be no, Michael is tall and lean, and we've seen his face before. If these people are so obsessed with Michael, they would know what he looked like. There would be people in Haddonfield who would probably
It'd be on the news.
Well, and it was on the news. They showed the faces of the people who were taken out. But I mean, but if this is Haddonfield, there would be stores and gift shops that people have been this is Haddonfield, the home of Michael Myers, the most brutal multiple murderer in all of the USA, and here's key tags with his face, and here's his mugshot,
and he hasn't had access to that mask for 40 years. That was established in 2018, so that pisses me off.
If anything, how would people even, it would be the mask that people wouldn't know what it looked like, because that evidence would be concealed. So if anything, his face is what most people would associate with the name Michael Myers. So
Unless they made a movie about him and people went all ghost-facedy with him.
What would the stab equivalent of Halloween?
Yeah, right. That's all we need. That's all we need. Old Hallows Eve, the franchise. But anyway, the spilling into a next big broad problem I have is it moved me the first time I saw it, but the whole sequence leading up to and including, and even the aftermath of the suicide, I couldn't even be bothered this time. I barely watched it. I was listening. I kept casting glances because I wanted to pay attention, but it was so... The only thing I liked about it was the fact that when Karen gets Oswald Cobblepot in her company and she's protecting him, she's leading him through a door to protect him. And she says, I just love Judy Greer so much because he's holding her hand and he's holding it as such that I guess he won't let go. She's like, okay, yeah, you're safe. Let go of my hand. Okay, good. And then she pushes him through the door. And it's just, I don't know, it's wonderful because she's walking this line of, I trust you enough to know that you're not Michael Myers, but you also are still like, a man that I need to feel I have some kind of upper hand with physically, so I don't feel threatened. And I don't know. And so I'm going to be polite, but I'm also going to let you know, let go of my hand. There you go. And I don't know. There's something about that I really enjoy. But the suicide and oh God, that line, another line. There are so many lines, but one of them is, now he's turning us into monsters. Yeah. Jesus Christ, bracket. Like,
not even subtle.
Could you have spelled it out?
And there's also...
He should have held up like a picket sign that read, "We're turning into monsters." That's what he should have said when they were all hate criming Michael at the end. You turned us into monsters.
Well, there's also another...
And then how are you a part of that crowd? Sorry. How are you a part of that mob at the end?
I mean, I think it had more to do because, like, with the current sheriff, because he was the one that he's just like, he murdered my daughter and desecrated her body, and he was gonna get it, and he's like, damn it, Brackett, I'm in control here. I actually like that. That was another thing I liked, is just like that dynamic, like, when they did use him effectively, they did. But yeah, you're right, it's just like it was a waste. I also, on your point, I wanted to say that Laurie had another line where, after the whole suicide aftermath, where she said, "This is Michael's design." And it's just like, no, it's not. He has no fucking idea what's going on here. He doesn't even care. Michael is like, he's not thinking about that shit. If like news got back to him, where he turned on the radio and they're just like, yeah, we thought Michael was at the hospital, and then it turned out another patient was there, but he committed suicide, and Michael would just probably like turn it off and just be like, do we get any other stations here? Or, it's just...
Yeah, right. Also, that line that you just mentioned, that almost gives too much interest in Michael from Laurie. The Laurie who we started out 2018 with, who I really, really liked, sitting in the chair with her arms folded, just completely dismissive of him because she knows he's evil. She knows he's the boogeyman. Yeah. The fact that she's looking at like something thinking he has any kind of design makes him too interesting from her perspective. I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of consistency with her character. I mean, like I was saying, like I tuned out a lot when she was, saying anything. And I think because like everything she says is just like, it's just like meaningless rhetoric. Like like she's like, there's the monologue she has at the end where she says something, which is almost like is it a nod to like Halloween 6, where she's like, that's the true curse of Michael, and it's just like, no, I've seen that movie. I actually like it better than this.
Also, it's just, I mean, that's the thing. I can't focus on more than like 2 words at a time from that speech because it is so uninteresting. It's so broad and it's so it's just not about anything. I feel like it's trying to make the movie smarter than it is, and it's failing. Also, okay, tiny nitpick with Laurie also, but huge laugh from me, unintentional, I believe, on the part of the filmmakers, when she takes that needle and she stabs it into her own ass, and yet the ass is soft. You can just put a needle in your ass and you're gonna be fine. But she's like, ah! And Karen's just like, you even know what that does? And she says the line that makes me laugh my ass off. It makes the pain go away. I just started laughing from the irony, because nothing that happened in those like 5 seconds or whatever was necessary.
Laurie doesn't do anything effective in this movie at all. Like, she did not need to be in this movie. But okay, here's the thing, and actually, I wanted to mention because the podcast Scream with Ryan C. Showers, we've mentioned him before. I've been a guest on there twice. I'm gonna be appearing on it today. Actually, it's because we just recorded it, so it's actually, if you're listening to this, go listen to his after. But he did a podcast a few weeks back where he actually wrote an essay and he read it on his podcast, just talking about kind of Blumhouse and sort of the flaws with the requel like idea of like these movies. And he brought up a lot of really good points, and it kind of made me realize a lot of things, even like kind of going back to the Black Phone, of just like how Blumhouse is making these movies and how they're, you know, able to like pump out so many and make them for really cheap, is because what they're doing is they're getting these big name actors like Ethan Hawke, and they're paying them a minimal amount to appear in the movie, but they're giving them executive producer status, so you know, they make millions in back ends. So that's why you know, you have like the Black Phone with Ethan Hawke. He's in it for 5 minutes. He probably was paid, you know, maybe like $15,000, $12,000 to appear in a movie, probably like a few days of work, and then literally is going to be making money off of it for the rest of his life. And that's why you see like the movies now advertised as like Ethan Hawke, Black Phone, you know, and then you have the same with Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, that's the perfect gig for her. She only has to like fly out for like a week or two, if that, a year.
Lay in a bed.
Gets probably paid nothing for it, but knows that like, okay, now when the movies comes out, I'm gonna have to do a lot of promoting and all this, and you know, I'll have to work then. You know, that's where most of the work is gonna come in, but I'm gonna be making money off of this. So she's like, it doesn't matter what she says. She gets a script, like, okay, great, sure. You know, maybe we talked about this, she has her ideas and wants to do it, and they're like, okay. But, you know, for the most part, like, that's how they get away with it. And they advertise, like, Jamie Lee Curtis, and she really has, like, 12 minutes of screen time. I think even in 2018, she only had 18 minutes of screen time. So we're being fooled because, like, we have their name above the title, and their scenes are like sporadic enough that, you know, we know that they're in the movie, but really they're not really in the movie. And that's why like Jamie Lee Curtis is such a non-presence here, that it's almost like, why would we want to see, like, if I want to see a movie about Laurie Strode, if this trilogy is being touted as like the final showdown between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode, then why hasn't Laurie Strode turned up? How is that, you know, what, like, how is this a successful relaunch? It's like, because that's the thing for me that I can't get behind it.
Yeah, because even if it's like a passing of the torch from Laurie to Allison, or even to Laurie and Karen and Allison, whatever, that's another thing that I feel like it set up, I felt, effectively in 2018, but did not stick the landing. And I know that we still have another movie to go. But I can't see anything happening in Halloween Ends that is going to change my mind about choices that were made, that we're discussing in Halloween Kills, that are on the thumbs down side. You know what I mean? Yeah. I would love it if that movie could make me love Halloween Kills more, because I own it. And I want to see, I want to enjoy watching the things that I own, and particularly watching the franchises that I enjoy. But yeah, I agree with pretty much everything that you said. I only have two more negative things that are very, very small and quick, because I know we're really over time now. In the extended cut, it's two things. I don't remember this in the theatrical cut, but when Michael is descending the staircase in the Myers house toward Allison after he kills Cameron, there is full-on video game music playing as he like walks down the stairs. It is not atmospheric. It is not scary. It imposes no threat. What
it sounds
the
like this.
Fuck?
It's like ding 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 ding. Like
yeah.
It's that weird shit. That's in the theatrical cut. It's on the soundtrack.
Is it in the? I didn't remember it in the theatrical cut, but it totally stood out for me in the extended one. But
it's
okay,
weird.
I guess I blocked it out.
It's like John Carpenter was just like, I don't know. It's the movie, you know.
Hey, the magic store's closed. Okay, but they can't all be winners. I'm John Carpenter. Finally, got it in. But
like on the old podcast that we did, that was Eddie's version of the John Carpenter voice, and. He
was always a showman.
We've been trying to implement it, but I'm glad we got it.
Yeah, it just hasn't found its moment, but here we go. So it'll happen the more Halloween films we do, hopefully the more exposure you'll have
or
to
the more John Carpenter.
John Carpenter's hand is much more in the other films. But anyway, and the last thing is jokes, a small thing from the extended cut. Does Michael Myers actually answer fucking Karen's cell phone? Because I swear to God, I heard Laurie calling Karen. Yeah. I thought I couldn't remember. I didn't remember this from the first time I saw it.
No, this is an alternate ending.
Okay, yeah. So she's calling, but even the first time I saw the alternate ending, I didn't remember this particular aspect. The fact that she's calling Karen, I thought it was just going to ring forever or go to voicemail and Laurie was going to know, and she's going to walk off and finish her monologue. Yeah. But no, I swear to God, there's an answer to the phone, and you hear, on the other side, and she just says whatever she says. I don't even remember what the line is because I don't give a shit because thank you for saying the line, but I don't give a shit what the fucking line is because it's one thing when he's strangling Linda while she's already started dialing the phone in the first movie. Started dialing the phone, is talking on it, and then he picks it up because it's already there. But for him to answer a fucking cell phone,
I mean, he would have had to like take his thumb and slide the thing like.
Yeah,
he's been in a cell for the last 40 years, and it's like, what is this thing? How do I operate?
Also, don't we all have facial recognition on our fucking phones? I mean, this is 2018, so I think when have facial recognition was as.
I mean, I don't know. I don't have that. Like when someone calls, you just have to swipe. I don't know if there's like an extra step when you're receiving a call.
Okay, maybe not. But
but he could have just put it up to her face then,
I mean, and also, okay, he's been incarcerated for like 40 years. Now he knows what a cell phone is. What the fuck? It angers me. So that's mine. That's my.
Maybe
list.
That's why they changed it. Okay, I have a few more. I'll just go through them really quick.
Go for it.
First one was just there was a lot of flashbacks to the 2018 movie, and I just felt that was so unnecessary because it's like. We get it. How many people actually went and saw Halloween Kills that didn't see that? And it's like,
Jesus,
why are you wasting time putting flashbacks to your own movie? There were no flashbacks to the first one in Halloween 2, other than like the opening. That's it,
Right.
Right. And then the other thing I mean, I'll try to keep this as quick as possible, but just the hospital, and I really emphasize hospital. 2021 versus Hospital 1981 of just how like we can get more into it when we talk about Halloween 2, but just like that movie is so atmospheric for me of just like the dimly lit hallways of Haddonfield Memorial. Here it's like crowded with people. Every fluorescent light is like they brought in more fluorescent lights to light this up. Like there's nothing scary about this environment. And I am also asking, like, how big is Haddonfield? That this is a huge hospital. This is like there's like so many floors to it. Like the guy, he fell from a height. And we see throughout the course of the movie, I don't even know how many bodies wheeled in there, whether they be like just attacks or like actual like dead bodies. And I'm just thinking, like, so is there like all this off-screen mayhem that we're not seeing, that Michael's just going around and like randomly attacking and killing people that we're not being shown, and we're just seeing like the aftermath of like people being brought in? Because there's a lot of people in the hospital who are just like, I don't know where my brother is, or whatever. And it's just like, it on any other given day of just like in a town the size of Haddonfield, you know, there's not going to be murders happening. Like Karen, in that extended scene when Karen goes into the morgue and there's this like very large cadaver sitting on there. So it's just like, did Michael kill this person too? Or are there just like lots of people dying of natural causes at the same time? Like it didn't, it's another thing that just took me out of it. I know that's part of the extended cut, so maybe it's not canon, but still, like,
right.
You have basically the whole town is there. So it's just like, there are deaths that are not accounted for. Like, I can only imagine, I don't know if the Dead Meat has done their Halloween kill count yet, but I haven't seen it, but I can only imagine, like, how do you do that? Like, how do you account for every single body?
Oh, God.
And it's almost like what makes Michael scary, especially like in, not even in the first movie, but in like, even in the sequels of like the early sequels, is that it's like it's very small scale. Like, he's just a very isolated area. Like, he only goes after specific victims, and here it just like just has free reign on the entire town, to the point where we're not even seeing what's happening anymore. So I hated that, and I just hated the hospital atmosphere in general of just.
And we lose a sense of the space too. Like even with like the direction. And they largely move things around versus where the locations are in the original movie from Pasadena. But everything's adjacent to everything else. But I don't know how large Haddonfield is anymore. It felt like a small town even in Halloween 2018 to me. It felt like a place where everybody kind of knew each other for the most part. Now it kind of feels like this vast expanse.
It's like a suburb of Chicago. A suburb.
A suburb. But I love you, Lakeith Stanfield. But yeah, no, I agree with you, and I feel like there was another thing I was going to remark on that you said. I can't remember. Go for it. Keep going.
And then the last thing I have, I just put it in quotes. Do it.
Oh. Do it!
Yeah.
That doesn't bother me as much.
I don't know. I can just no. If I had like just to bring up back another complaint about Allison, I'm just like. Anyway, shall we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people on purpose.
All right, so first order of business, we got to pick a cherry on top. And
I forgot about that. I was so busy in the muck and the mire of the movie, and then in the great moments too.
Yeah.
But okay. Do you have somebody in mind?
I mean, I can't see it being anyone else other than Lindsay Wallace.
I agree.
Yeah.
She was the first one I thought of just now, so let's do that.
Okay. Lindsay Wallace it is. Okay, now cherry picking. Last week...
Lindsay... Sorry, go on. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Last week, we asked you who deserves to die the most in Psycho, 1960. Mm-hmm. I nominated Milton Arbogast. You nominated Tom Cassidy across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube. 268 for Tom Cassidy versus 114 for Milton Arbogast.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So let's just read some of the comments.
Okay.
Silent Saturn says, Tom Cassidy was a kind old man walking around town happy as a clam that his little girl was about to get married and wanted to buy her a house as a gift. Not only was he sharing his wealth by pushing the economy, he was also very empathetic, instantly able to tell when someone is unhappy despite putting on a happy face. He then selflessly offers to buy their unhappiness away, all the time being
No.
wise enough to know that money doesn't make you happy, but maybe a little less unhappy. He didn't even want to press charges when his money was stolen. Why are we mad at this? What's wrong with Eddie? My vote goes to Detective Arbogast for being, as Zach described it correctly, annoyingly good at his job and a little too smug.
Oh my God! Wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I can take it, but I would argue that nothing about Tom Cassidy is selfless. That's all.
That seems like a little bit of yes. I don't know about that, but he does bring up a good point that he wasn't gonna press charges. He just wanted the money to be returned. So it was almost like it was showed a bit of mercy there.
Yeah.
Trenton James says Tom deserved to more than anyone.
Okay, I like that.
Blue Box 87 says Marion's boss. How could he be that careless with a client's money? Also, if my employee tells me that she isn't feeling well, I'd send her straight home and not make her go to the bank first with a giant amount of cash. So since he isn't a choice, I picked Tom. He was too trusting and irresponsible with his own money, and he was yucky. I thought about nominating Marion's boss just because he didn't have an air conditioner in the main room there. He had one in the back, though.
You know what? That's a good point.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess I
but
just...
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Blueberry says, Arbo gassed. Love him. He deserved least to die for sure.
Oh.
Okay.
So he deserved to die least? I hope he didn't vote
I guess
for him.
that's a comment on your side then.
I hope.
It is, yeah. In Plain Sight says Detective Arbogast, and it isn't even close. I imagine he's only losing because so few votes are in. Cassidy was just a rich fat cat. The detective deserved to die for his incompetence. He goes into Bates' house and did everything a detective shouldn't do. Arbogast was also less compassionate than Tom. He was on the case for a substantial amount of money.
Wow. Okay. Wow. A lot of hate for Arbogast. I never felt.
I think you were. Who's the actor who plays him?
Martin Balsam.
See, I think that you're connecting a lot of that to the actor because you put on your Instagram, it's just like how Zach could nominate this class.
Oh, but yeah, no, that was just propaganda. But no, for
you're all about the
I like the
propaganda.
I think, but also, I think there's definitely something to the argument about once he got into the house, he did everything that a detective shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But I'd argue he also caught things about Norman. We didn't get to talk about this in the pod either.
Yeah.
But just the fact that there are so many glances he casts at Norman throughout their exchange that I adore, that he knew something was up.
Yeah.
He knew this is not a guy to trust, and I dug that. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. And then we got two more here. Cosmic Urgency says the doctor giving the monologue at the end, so unnecessary.
Oh, I like him.
And then Heather Utterback says, I had to skip Bodies because I've not seen it yet. But Tom, for sure, he's gross.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The yuck factor, totally.
Well, I mean, like, I think that, like, it was hard to pick anyone in this movie because again, like, normally when we make our nominations, at least for me, I tend to go for a person who I just like, why are you even here? And I don't feel that way about Arbogast. Like, he needs to be in the movie. Like, he needs to be there. Like, he's so integral. It's just one of those things where just because, like, we're in Norman's experience, I don't like this guy because, like, he's just pushing a little too much, you know? Obviously, if Norman was a better liar, he would have
I just think
been
it's
like,
hilarious
okay.
that he's pushing too much. Then when Norman is the villain of the piece, like if we were reading a newspaper about it, the headline wouldn't be "Nosy Detective Fails to nab sweet mother-loving son. Anyway, that's hilarious to me. I think that's so
Maybe
great.
that's like a different movie that Hitchcock made, like Psycho from Arbogast perspective.
Oh my gosh, that would have been funny.
You won, good sir, so you get to nominate first.
Okay, it wasn't even close. Again, kind of like with the cherry on top, somebody did pop into my head. But with this one, I am nominating Christy, the youngest of the trick-or-treaters, the season of the witch trick-or-treaters. She's the one, I think, who wears the witch mask? But she's the one who... The obnoxious one.
The one that comes to the door.
No, we're not even scared you. Hey, hey, hey. Or just like, hey, why don't you come over here? Why don't you take it? We're not like scared of you or whatever. I mean, the actress's name is Salem Collins. I think she does a good job. Too good. I hate this character. I hate when she's on screen. I'm sad that she got away. And I'm sad that she might be in Halloween Ends. Because I think she is horrid. I don't know. Well, she survived. She ran away. As far as we know, she survived. Like, she ran away. The one in the skull mask is the one who got killed, and they just left their masks behind, and that's how he dressed up, the other people, Marion and Marcus and Vanessa. But, no, just the level of obnoxia that I get from her in the trick-or-treating scene, and then later when they're in the playground, I'm just like, I know exactly who you are. I've worked in a mall often enough to have to deal with you, and I hate you, and I want you to die. So that's how I feel about that character. Yeah. Christy dies tonight.
It's so funny that you nominated that character because I mean, first of all, I assumed that you were gonna go more basic and do Tommy Doyle or something like that, because I don't know, I just come to expect that from you. But my nomination, which still stands, I'm not going to change it, was actually for the trick-or-treater from the 1978 flashback. And there's not a name for this. I mean, they were all terrible, but we have to pick one.
Right.
I'm looking at the IMDb cast, and all three of them are just listed as, like, each one is called 1978 Trick-or-Treater. So I'm just to be specific, I'm going to say the one who's basically the lead, like basically the 1978 version of Christy, who is the one who's takes the sour ball or whatever and licks it
and licks it
and pushes
right.
it. And all I know is, like, the one kid says, like, don't fuck with the Mulaney's. So I'm guessing like Mulaney is what I'll... Mulaney
Mulaney number one.
Yeah, the girl, the one that just, like, the most, obviously the one in control. So basically, our nominations are, like, the same people, or just, like, the same archetype, just a different generation. So
I'd argue because mine has more screen time, she's more obnoxious, but yours does some damage. Like, I know exactly who you're talking about.
But I feel like yours is at least relevant to the characters in the story that's happening in the moment, whereas, like, these kids in 1978 didn't even need to fucking be there. Who are they? And what's this, like, hierarchy of bully? Like, in 1978 we saw that Lonnie was like he was like the big man on campus. Like, he was the elementary school.
He was
the bad one. Yeah. Then, like, all of a sudden, like, now we see that
he's gonna get you. Course,
and what does she say? She's like, Lonnie, small and scrawny. Like, shut up, bitch. Like, you suck. So yeah, now we're led to believe that there's even, like, worse bullies at Haddonfield Elementary. Like, no.
Right. Again, how big is Haddonfield? Like,
yeah, exactly. And you know what? Like, and another thing, like, we already had the Halloween 4 bullies. Like, those kids were pretty awful. We'll talk about them when we get to that pod. God, but to make 2 sets of fucking kid bullies that are even worse than the ones before, like, we don't like characters like these. Like, we don't want to see, like, unless you're gonna kill them.
You kill them, totally.
And and he didn't even get an on-screen kill. And I'd argue that I liked the skull mask guy the most because of the way he, like, when he came in, he's like, I took every last piece of candy, and throws the bowl, and I thought he was funny. If I had to pick one that I liked out of them, but they all suck, you know.
I guess I liked the more benign one with the glasses.
The one that was like just there to like play dead with the
Yeah, the
vomit
one with
and
the black curly hair, and the one who's just on the swing, who isn't anywhere near as obnoxious as Christy.
Yeah.
Christy, oh God, just I can hear her. Like, make it stop. Okay, so there you go. Vote your conscience, vote your heart, people.
Yes, either 1978 or 2018, fully.
Yep.
Anyway, you can vote on Instagram. Our official account is at the Cherry Picker Pod. You can also vote on the YouTube community section here on the Cherry Picker YouTube page. If you're listening to the podcast, you can obviously watch us there on YouTube. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can listen to the podcast as well. The RSS link is in the descriptions down below. You can also vote on Patreon, where these episodes are released early. And we actually have some new Patreon supporters.
Yay!
Yeah. So welcome to Traj125, Clifton Wonderlick, Perry. Are you gonna do that every time?
Yeah.
Okay.
You told me I can't applaud anymore, so I can applaud at the end. But I want to do something. You told me not to applaud anymore. I don't remember why. Go on.
Oh, I think it just broke up the momentum. That's it. But
Yeah.
Perry
like
Powski.
I'm not right now. Perry Powski, yay!
Autumn Williams.
Yay!
See, now, because I have to wait for you. That's why it's... And
just do
Erica
it. I'll just do it in
M.
the background. Yay! See?
Erica M. See, because I'm trying to say them without the interruption. But
without
thank
getting
you.
interrupted.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. I didn't understand.
I thought it was understood. Yeah. No. Well.
No, I'm sorry.
And also, Andre Felix, our editor.
Yay!
Thank you. Also, just while we're speaking about Patreon, we do have our Patreon Cherry Picker After Dark exclusive that's should be out already. It's the Buffy season 2 episode where we rank and discuss every episode from that show. So
we do.
Check it out. And if you do sign up for that, you do get access to the previous episodes as well, where we did have the final girl ranking, which we already discussed. So that's, I mean, if you enjoy listening to us, like we go on for 4 hours there. Was it 4 hours or like, it's like 3 to 4?
It was some unmeasurable.
There's a lot of final girls we went through. Yeah.
We went through over 80. So
yeah, so that was a good time. So you can check that out if you subscribe to the Freddy Krueger tier. Also, we have a review on yeah. Let me just bring it up because I clearly am not prepared. So from IITZ, see, I can't pronounce this. Itsy Benny Gaming, maybe.
Sure.
I'm so sorry. Top tier podcast, very enjoyable podcast to listen to. Love the Cherry Picker and Cherry on Top mini games. I love that they're referred to as mini games. Yeah.
That's fun.
It's great how much information you guys gather about the movies and their production, and the knowledge you bring to the table is awesome. Keep it up, Zach and Eddie. 5 stars all the way. Some suggestions for the pod include The Lost Boys, You're Next,
fun.
Child's Play 2,
Well, I mean, yes.
Disturbia, and Alien. See, I have to wait for every reaction from you before I can Anyway, yeah, thank you for that. It's Itsy Benny Gaming, if I'm saying that right. Anyway, where can they find you on social media, Eduardo?
You can find me on Instagram and at YouTube at the same place. Edward is Truth, one word. That's my handle. And also, just so people can know, Something's coming up October 3rd. I'm a part of Scream Left 2, which is going to be, it's a fundraiser for Stacey Abrams, who, regardless of what your politics may be, she is someone who is largely trying to just kind of like get the power back into the hands of the people of Georgia. So we want to put some power behind her. And what we're going to be doing is reading the original Kevin Williamson draft of Scream 2, the script. It's going to be different than the one that is the theatrical release now. And yeah, I have it now. I haven't read it, but I'm going to read over it to prepare.
Is that the one with the different killers?
Yeah.
What role are you playing? Can you reveal that?
I'm playing Ghostface for sure.
Like the voice?
And because I had played Ghostface last year when we did the Scream 1. Scream. The original Scream, 1996. Not, Scream 5 Cream. But so I'm doing Ghostface for sure, and I believe I got the list, but I believe I'm also doing Cotton Weary. And and I'm playing Lois, the sorority sister, played by Rebecca Gay Hart. So
you don't get to play Murphy. She's the one that's like, hi.
Well, we don't know. We don't know what. I mean, the scene.
Oh yeah, that might not even be a line in the movie. Yeah.
So who knows what I'm going to get to do?
I hope that the line "Don't forget to set the alarm" is in there, because I know you really like that line.
We'll see, and we'll see how I deliver it if it's there. Yeah. But if you want to take part in that, you can go to. I just had it open and I just moved my phone. You can go to at Jones Hip Hop. Spelled JONESHIPHOP. That's Thomas Wortham's page, and there's a link to eventbrite.com where you can donate and get a ticket to watch us stream this via Zoom. So yeah, fun stuff if you want to see me act. Anyway, so I just
and you can find me on Instagram at RetroBitchface. I'm on Twitter at ZachCherry8, and I also got my main YouTube channel, Zach Cherry. You can check it out. Anyways, this is like our longest episode yet, at least for this one. So, in closing, what's going on next week?
Oh yeah, it was that other movie. Fuck. Hellraiser.
Yes.
Not fuck. Oh, fuck. We're watching Hellraiser.
Well, no, I wasn't sure if you were playing a game. Just by like, I don't remember. What is it? But no,
neither was I. Yeah. For a second, I was like, should I forget? But I did forget. But then come up with something else, and I couldn't.
Okay.
So,
well, we got
welcome to the
original Hellraiser, I should mention, because we've got a new one that's releasing on Hulu. So we're gonna dive back into the one that started it all. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will be right back.